home of sim racing leagues. Our management tools allow you to recruit drivers and monitor their ratings and live splits. Find this and more at gridfinder.com. Sign up for free today.
Good evening everyone and welcome back to the World Online Racing YouTube channel for another round of this PC Tier 1 season. Only 3 races left and Jarno Opmeer continues to lead the championship ahead of Ismail Fassi, absent for this evening, but another threat is looming. Thomas Ronhaar has got 3 wins out of the last 3 races, hunting down Jarno Opmeer, and we'll find out whether or not tonight he is going to continue that streak in Qatar. My name is Dan Field, being joined once again by Nathan Richards. Nathan, how are you doing tonight?
Hello, Dan. I'm doing very well, thanks. Going into this round, I'm quite excited because Jarno and Thomas, I think they're kind of now going to be our main protagonists, because Ishmael obviously not racing here this week. He's going to be a little bit on the back foot, obviously, considering that, Thomas continues with his form of, 3 wins in a row, trying to make it 4, if not maybe a podium. Obviously, Jarno as well, he's been in decent form. Hasn't been really fighting for victories as much, but he has still been getting some really decent results in always, around that top 5 area. So I think, those two, they're going to be battling yet again here in WOR around a track which I think can be quite interesting, can't it, Qatar? We know it's, one of the newer tracks on the F1 calendar, and also it's quite a low grip track as well, which means drivers tend to struggle a little bit sometimes around here.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, last time we were here, maybe the less said about that race, the better, but I'd imagine that as we've progressed on this F1 23 game, the driving standards have gotten a lot better. Before we head into qualifying, we've got to have a look at the results from last time out in Zandvoort, and it was Thomas Ronhaar taking the win in his home Grand Prix ahead of Tom Manley and Jake Benham in 2nd and 3rd position. Luke Smith ended up 4th, with Jarno Opmeer climbing up the grid into 5th position. Tamas Gal was 6th and Ismail Fassi was 7th. Then rounding out the top 10, we have Philip Presnader in 8th, Xander Van Dyken, your pole sitter from that race, dropping all the way down to 9th, and Bent Jabakoni getting 1 solitary point. Let's have a look at how this has affected the championship charge. It is Jarno Opmeer still leading the way, extending his advantage to Ismail Fassi. 119 points for the Flying Dutchman. Ismail only on 95. Thomas Ronhaar, he's been creeping up the standings. He's now on 84 points and is looming over the shoulder of Ismail Fassi, with Otis Lawrence in 4th, still 10 points clear of Nicholas Longay on 47. Jake Benham with his podium last time out drew level with the Frenchman in 6th position, and Duncan Hoffland in 7th on 46. How about that for a mid-top 10 fight? There's 4 drivers separated by just 2 points. Alvaro Caraton is the last driver in that train on 45. And then rounding out the top 10, it's Dylan Warren and Joseph Loke. Nathan, coming into this one this evening, looks like Jarno Opmeer, it's his championship to lose. His main rival, Ismail Fassi, not here, but Thomas Ronhaar, what a season he is having.
Yeah, Thomas is doing a brilliant job so far, isn't he? I think he's one of those that, when he gets himself proper into that, racing mode, no one can stop him. And I think even Jarno, his, expertise and how good he is at the game, if he can't stop Thomas Ronhaar, then no one can. So I think going into this, obviously, Thomas has yet again got to get himself a decent qualifying in order. He's got to be in that top 10 around a track, which I don't think he's finished the best at. It's not like, I don't think he's won much here on this circuit. So maybe it's, a bit of new territory for Thomas here tonight. But Jarno, again, qualifying's been a bit of a weak point, but then again, in the past few weeks, I think we've seen, not just here, but in other leagues, he's really, got himself into a bit more of a higher qualifying form. So if he can get that sorted out, it's going to be very difficult for anyone to beat him, because his racecraft is arguably one of the best on the game. It's his qualifying which always lets him down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how is it going to be impacted here tonight in Qatar? We'll have to wait and see later on this evening. But for now, let's head over to the scene, and you can see there's not, well, actually we're not actually looking at anyone at the minute, but a few drivers out on circuit on the sets of the intermediate tyres, as to be expected by these high-tier three-step qualifying runnings. You know, no one really likes to go out on a set of the softs this early in Q1, but what we're watching Philip Pregenator, who's been silently impressing me in the last few weeks. Nathan, I really do think this man has a good shot of making it into Q3 once again tonight.
He definitely does. I think Philip has definitely been putting a bit more hours and a bit more time into the game. He's been doing a very good job as of recent. So, I think he can definitely get himself into the top 10. And I think the thing with Philip as well is he's kind of one of those, no matter where he qualifies, he tends to stick around that position in the race. So if he gets into the top 10, I can easily see him finishing within that top 10. But another team we should talk about, Dan, is obviously Red Bull. Coming into this, they've got Freddie Rasmussen, who I believe is making his first appearance alongside his teammate Josh, who I believe is on his second. So, obviously these two coming together, working in full force. Maybe we could see a bit of a Red Bull, a bit of a Red Bull masterclass tonight.
Yeah, but these two drivers, Freddie and Josh, neither of them really do like to flex their muscles in league racing. Freddie, whenever he does race, he's never at that level that we see in the F1 esports scene, which does give pretty good opportunity for other drivers to, show themselves at the very front of the order. As now Philip Pregenator through the final corner. We'll see what he can do on his opening lap on the intermediate tyres. Do not expect too much out of these initial runs. It's going to be a 1 minute 25.108 from him there. Kai Pearson, although already up into the 1 minute 24s as more drivers come across to complete their laps. Should be around about the 10-minute mark, Nathan, that we see runs on a set of the softs.
Indeed, and I think, Q1 around here is going to be quite close. I think, around this circuit, the qualifying is always really close with it, being such a... It's one of those tracks where there's not many places to make mistakes. That's why everyone's so close together. So you tend to see whole grids separated by 2-3 tenths of a second, which when you've got people who are at the top of their game fighting for positions, it gets really close than anyone. You can see going out in Q1 and Q2. So I think qualifying is going to be a key thing to get right, meaning on your laps, you need to make sure you're making no mistakes, because losing half a tenth could cost you going in towards Q2 and Q3. So, and around here, it's not a risk you can take. We know that a DRS train always forms around here, and overtaking opportunities, they're not that high when you're just stuck in a train. So if you're started at the back, it's going to be very difficult for you to try and move your way up. So I think if you qualify badly, you've got to try something different with strategy. Maybe go on a set of a softer compounded tyre to try and work your way through, or you need to go for a bit of a different pit stop. So maybe go for a bit of an undercut, because we do know, obviously, that will bring you out ahead of the drivers who are doing an overcut, and then you can try and defend. So I think strategy is a key part, especially for those finishing qualifying a little bit further down.
Yeah, absolutely, and of course it is. It's really quite difficult to overtake around this circuit due to the fact that there is only one DRS zone and one real heavy braking zone along this circuit that is headed, of course, in towards turn number 1. But other than that, not really any spots where you can see drivers go for a lurching move up the inside, like what was like some that we saw last time out in Zandvoort. Of course, Nathan, you were asleep for that race, but we saw plenty of dive bombs into that first corner. But around a track like Qatar, where there's no real heavy braking points aside from maybe turn number 6 at the beginning of the second sector, it's going to be very difficult for these guys to actually make these moves. So you're absolutely right in saying that this race is going to be made on the strategy.
It will indeed, and I think another thing about this circuit is, especially when we get towards that race segment, obviously a lot of the parts of the corner is very flowy, high speed. You don't really need to lift or brake that much. So if a driver crashes, it can cause quite, a bit of an effect further back down the grid, because everyone's trying to move out the way and trying to brake. And obviously we know the ghosting system isn't the best in this game. So, one collision from one driver can cause quite a lot to happen for others. So I think, that's one of the things drivers need to be careful of making sure they're not, causing incidents and get themselves into sticky situations, especially up in towards that turn 12 through to 14 section, which is flat out. And you've got 3 corners to take. If you go wide there and you come back onto circuit, oh, hell, he's going to break loose.
Absolutely, and I saw someone asking earlier on in the live chat if there's any controller players in this rivalry. Not in the rivalry that I assume we were talking about in Jarno Opmeer and Thomas Ronhard and Ismail Fassi, but on this grid tonight, Louis Welch, making his return to WOR. Disappointing race last time out from him in Zandvoort, hoping that Qatar is going to be his hunting ground to potentially score some points. 11 minutes left to go in this qualifying session. It is an absolute ghost town out on circuit, but if I bring up the detail, you can see now everyone has taken off that set of the intermediate tyres, and now they're on a set of the softs. I also saw Andrew Hornigold asking why everyone is on the intermediates. It's just to do a little check of their equipment. They've got plenty of time in qualifying, and so they don't want to use up a set of the softs too early, just to check that everything is all right. So they utilize the intermediates, which Nathan, of course, around a circuit like Qatar, given where it is in the world, I'd imagine they're going to be seldom used tonight.
Yeah, I can't imagine it raining, but then again, I think it was back in the F2 and F3 test in IRL, there was a bit of rain in Bahrain, and it was quite, a bad storm, so you never know, it might make an appearance, but I think it's quite unlikely. I've never commentated over a racing release which has been in the wet weather at all. I think the only time I did was, well, the time I did at least, was when it got restarted because it wasn't meant to be wet, and it was quite, it's quite sad, because it's like, let the weather do its thing, let the drivers race around Saudi Arabia in the wet, but no, it got cancelled and got put to dry. But yeah, I think, a bit of wet would be nice, but yeah, the chances of that are probably, I probably got a high chance of winning the lottery than having a wet Qatar Grand Prix.
There was only one time in my commentary career that I went to a Middle Eastern circuit and there was rain in the race, and it was PSGL Saudi Arabia in season 30. Jan Ortmir absolutely dominated that race. It was really odd to see just the intermediates on in Jeddah. I'd imagine we're not going to see them here tonight in Saudi Arabia, but if we do, know that Jan Ortmir is going to be very, very high up the order. So now finally all of the drivers are coming out on their set of the soft compounder tyres. It is Reese Linton to be the first man out on circuit, and just behind him is his good friend at Race Clutch, Reese Pearson. Sorry, he is not Reese Pearson. I've just combined their names. Kai Pearson and of course Reese Linton. Actually quite similar surnames there, Nathan.
Yeah, they are indeed. And was it you who gets mixed up with? Is it Will Lewis and Luke Smith?
Oh yeah, I've done Will Smith a few times. Luckily, Will's not on the grid tonight.
No, but we have got Luke, who I think has been in, he's been in some decent form himself. I think, especially towards that race, towards that race segment. I think qualifying is a little bit of a hit and a miss for him. But I think in terms of the race pace, I think he does quite a decent job, especially working his way back through the field. So I'm quite keen to see what Luke Smith can do tonight. But obviously, on board with Reese Linton is going to be setting the first lap on the soft tyres in this session. He's also a man, Dan, that has been quite good in the qualifying, but in the race, he just can't get it to work, can he?
I remember Belgium earlier on this season. I think he qualified, or it was somewhere very early on in this season. Mexico, that's it. He qualified way up the grid, on pole position actually, but he ended up finishing in around 16th or 17th. So Reese Linton, very talented in qualifying, but when it comes to race trim, that's where he really does struggle. So he's got to really nail it to ensure that his race can go as smoothly as possible. Flying through the first corners, you really want to use all the circuit that you can. It's a very high speed circuit, very minimal braking zones around this Losail circuit. In towards now the double right-hander of turn number 4 and 5. Very easy to invalidate off the left-hand side of that corner, and that was very nicely done by him there. Now and towards the hairpin corner, where we can see some potential moves up the inside at the beginning of the second sector. Reese Linton looking a little bit shaky through the first sector, but as he approaches sector 2, he's going to be hoping the rest of this lap is going to be smooth sailing.
Indeed, we'll see what he can do as he heads through in towards turns 9 and turn number 10, where we'll see him enter that sector 3 part, which is really not much corners apart from 2 that you have to actually turn for and have to lift and brake for. As he heads up towards turn 12 now, his middle sector, what will it be? It's 3.7 seconds upon his into time of 53.0 as he heads through this flat out section. No need to lift or brake throughout this whole part of the circuit. Then you shift into 6th gear and keep it flat in towards the final couple of corners there, in towards turn 15, I believe, at the final part of this circuit. Brakes just after that 50-metre board, down to 5th gear, gets back on the power, goes wide though on the entry. That's going to definitely harm his exit, so probably not the best lap here for Reese Linton as he heads up towards line. What will the first lap time be of the session in the soft? It's a 20.277. I definitely think there'll be some big improvements needed on that lap. Yeah,
Patrick Sipos up to the 9 Lex, and he will go just a couple hundredths quicker than Reese Linton. What about Freddie Rasmussen as he approaches the line now? It's going to be a 1 minute 20.192 for the Great Dane. That start-finish line is deceivingly far down that straight as Tom Manley comes across the line with a 1 minute 20.135. A very nice time indeed from him there. Let's have a look at Otis Lawrence in the final sector. We know how incredibly quick he is in qualifying trim. I don't believe he was actually here last time out in Zandvoort, but we'll see what he can do as he comes across the line now. He's going to edge closer ever so slightly to the 1 minute 19s, but so far Tom Manley the quickest in qualifying.
Indeed, and obviously Josh Eder there into P11, so not the best result for him so far in his qualifying session. Chanakinchi popping himself into P12. We've got the two Mercedes coming through. Obviously Jake Benham will be the first of the two, and we'll see what Jake can do as he heads down now in towards the final corner at turn 16. Obviously, along with those two Mercedes are the two the Sabres on laps as Thomas Ronhaar goes quickest to 20.112. Brilliant lap there from Mr. Ronhaar at the top, and Jake Benham, where does he go? Into P9 for him. What about his teammate Jarno Watmere, the Flying Dutchman, into P7? So a decent opening run there for Jarno Watmere, just popping himself about a tenth and a little bit back from Thomas Ronhaar. We've got Ika Benner coming through the first sector. I don't know if he's on a lap or if he's let off as he heads down in towards turn 6 to 29.971 for his first sector. But yeah, Ronhaar looking yet again very, very strong here, Dan.
Yeah, it's how they finished last time out in Zandvoort. Thomas Ronhaar winning that race. Tom Manley in P2, and it seems like they're going to be continuing the same feud heading into qualifying here this evening. 5 minutes left to go in this Q1 session. The 5 drivers facing elimination at the minute are Philip Presnader, Kai Pearson, Louis Welch, Nicholas Longe, and Ika Boehner, who I believe invalidated on that first lap. Ika really does seem to struggle to actually get these laps on the board. But he is going to be able to come back into the pit lane, and he'll have another opportunity to get that lap done. 4.5 minutes now left to go. We'll see who is able to trump Thomas Ronhaar. It's looking very tight at the top, actually. The top 4 all separated by less than a tenth, and the gap between Thomas Ronhaar and 16th position Philip Presnader is just over 0.3 of a second. So Nathan, very, very fine margins as something's happened there. Josh he's crashed in the pit lane. Josh has crashed. I was on board with Thomas Ronhaar, Nathan, and Josh just crashed or something. He lost his wing and he just stopped in the pit lane.
And well, there we are. Brilliant F123 as usual. And Josh is now going to be started from the back of the grid. And Lou Welch, did he have a bit of a disconnection earlier on? Because I've just noticed he's just joined back into the session, so maybe that's why Louis didn't get that initial run on the softs underway. Obviously, you can see on his 125.2, but further up, what we can see, Otis and Thomas have both retired from the session, so they'll be done on their 20.1s and 20.2s. But I think pretty much everyone fifth down will probably have to go out again and get another lap in. And obviously Nicholas Longe, I think, was also one of those who suffered from an invalidation, hence why he has no time on the board, and he's down in 18th position. And I definitely think that he's a driver who we don't expect to see anywhere near that Q1 elimination zone.
Yeah, I mean, Nicholas Longe, a former champion here in WOR, but it feels a very long time ago. Season 12 was when Nicholas Longe was the very best in WOR, and he really hasn't been able to capture that title glory like he had previously. Of course, in season 14, he was competing for the championship, but it didn't end out working his way. That was Thomas Ronhaar that won that title, and so far this season, really hasn't looked to be in the title fight whatsoever. Still, though, Nicholas Longe is a driver that we would hate to see go out this early in qualifying, especially when he is so closely matched to the first man out on circuit, Duncan Hoffland. Nathan, we were talking just before stream about Aston Martin and their attendance in league racing, and how it's kind of non-existent at times, but Duncan Hoffland, he is the exception. He's been fantastic so far this season, 46 points to his name, and I'm really hoping for a good race tonight.
Indeed, I think Duncan, yet again, he's one of those drivers that he either performs really well, but if he doesn't have a good race, he's right at the back of the grid. So I think, he's one of them that benefits off a high qualified position. It seems like he has more motivation when he's near the top and less motivation when he's near the bottom of the grid. But I'm definitely hoping that he can get himself some decent points earlier on in the season. In the first 3 or 4 rounds, he was one that we could consider possibly fighting for a top 3 in the championship. And obviously now being, I think, a little bit further down, I think he's still in for some decent points. But I think the good thing for Duncan is obviously in the position where he's at, he doesn't need to fight for wins all the time because he knows he's not going to fight for the championship, so he can just enjoy himself a little bit more.
Absolutely, as he is going to be the first man to put us onto a second lap of this session. Behind him is the two Alpines of Luke Smith and Philip Presnader, and with Josh Ado's actual disqualification, Philip Presnader was bumped up from 16th into 15th, so he, as it stands, is actually safe at the minute, but a 20.4 is not a good time. It's not going to see him safely into the next qualifying session, so it's imperative that both Alpine drivers are able to get themselves into the next part of qualifying. But Duncan Hoffland now rounding the final turn. We'll see what he can do as he will get his lap underway, and it is such a long run down at this start-finish straight, and it is actually you run out of ERS as you approach the line, so you lose critical kilometers per hour heading up towards the line. So I'd imagine at some point on this lap through the slower corners, we might see Duncan Hoffland and the rest of the grid turn off their battery to save it for that final run. But riding on board with him through the first sector, he's not really kissing the apex on the inside too much, but he is carrying great amounts of speed through this first sector. We'll see what he can do as he approaches now the double right-hander. Very tricky two corners to navigate there, but he really did scrub up minimal speed through that section of the circuit. He's purple in sector 1, up by 300ths of a second. So far, Nathan, it's looking good for Duncan Hoffland.
He is indeed, and obviously with that improvement there, that will be good enough to, put him up in towards P6 and P7. So I think he definitely needs to, just keep it on it in this lap. And when we talk about the ERS issue, of course, it's normally turns 4 and turns 5 where the people turn their battery off, just to, give them a little bit more to run to the end. And Freddie Rasmussen, I don't think cross-line time. No, he stayed in the pits, hence why he's finished now with that checkered flag next to his name. And Duncan up by over a tenth in that middle sector now as he heads down in towards the final two corners on this circuit. We'll see what Duncan can manage to put on the board. I think he's through into Q2 anyway, but I think he just wants to get that lap in, just to keep himself a bit more confident that he can get himself through. A bit of a slide, come and get the final corner, gets that DRS open now as he heads up towards the line. What will it be for Duncan Hoffland to the line? Into P3. Brilliant lap there, Dan.
Yeah, great stuff from Duncan Hoffland to, I'd say, secure himself into the next part of qualifying. Philip Presnader can only manage P13. Louis Welch, unfortunately, out of qualifying. Here's Luke Smith to the line and nestles himself into P4 with a very nice time indeed. What about Tamas Gal as he heads through the final few corners? Nicholas Longue will actually watch him as Reese Linton matches Thomas Ronhar's time. Here comes Longue and he goes into P7. Should safely be into the next part of qualifying. Valentin Bruffair, great lap time on the board from him to get himself into the next part of qualifying. Jake Benham on the cusp of being eliminated, but he is safe in this session as Patrick Sipos makes it a Williams 1-2. Jake Benham disrupts the party, goes 2,000 slower than the Williams, and how about that? For a margin at the very top of the order, Patrick Sipos the fastest in Q1, Thomas Ronhart in P2. Valentin Bruffair, gotta say, Nathan, always very impressive in qualifying, and how about that for some fine margins? I mean, that is, to quote George Morgan, that is thinner than a fly's eyelash. The top 5 all separated by less than 100th of a second. Nicholas Longue all the way down in 13th position was within a tenth of Patrick Sipos. Philip Presnader eliminated the gap, not even 0.2 of a second. Nathan, we are being set up for what is going to be a sensational qualifying tonight.
We are indeed, and obviously, you know what, me, dead in P15 along with Otis Lawrence. Otis retired. That was very close for him to go out, and I think if a couple more drivers down near the back didn't make those mistakes, Otis would have found himself in that elimination zone, which I think going now towards this second qualifying section, even if you're at the top in queue, even if you're at the top after that first run, you can't afford to retire because the gaps are that close between everyone on this grid. I think, yet again, we could see anyone going out. Obviously, Jana Watmir was looking quite strong at the start of Q1, nearly facing elimination. Obviously, only saved by a little bit of time. So, yeah, we'll see what this Q2 can bring, but definitely good signs, of course, from those at the top. And Valentin Bruffair, driver we don't see too often here in WR, he's looking very, very strong indeed. Yeah,
Valentin is one of the drivers that I've been commentating on since F1 2019. Back in a little league called HTA Elite. I still like to reference it to this day. He was in a title fight with one CRG Sparks. If you're not familiar with that name, that's Wilson Hughes. That was a really, really long time ago. If you can hear from the audio playing in your ears now, you'll know that we are back into qualifying. So back over to the game scene. It's a whole gaggle of cars heading in towards that first corner, but out first it is both the Hasses of Tamas Gal and Reese Linton. Very good to see the pair of them into the next part of qualifying. Nathan, these two are very, very well known for being sort of mavericks in qualifying. They are so incredibly quick, and I'd imagine heading into this part of qualifying, these two are going to be looking at a Q3 spot potentially.
Indeed, and this is no way shade on those two drivers at all, but I know that many league races will call them quali merchants, as it seems they're always good in qualifying, but in the race they tend to drop back a little bit, and in some cases for Reese Linton dropped back quite a bit. So I think, obviously, for those two drivers, the key thing they need to focus on now is just getting themselves a bit more comfortable in the race. I think a lot of it can be down to pressure. So, yes, we'll see what they can do, obviously, when we go in towards the race, but I think they're undoubtedly going to get themselves through in towards Q3, and obviously maybe you could see Tamas and Reese fight for pole. I think they've done it multiple times here this season. I believe it was back in Bahrain earlier on in the season, I think, the race that where Tamas took pole, and yes, again, unfortunately couldn't get himself onto that top three. So, yeah, I think a lot of it for those guys is down to that race, but obviously we have the second that's beginning now, and Tamas will be, I believe, the first heading out, or no, it would be Reese Linton, obviously, with Otis Lawrence as well, just sitting in behind.
Yeah, Otis Lawrence, of course, also being praised and hailed for his qualifying prowess, but he does seem to have that finishing product in the race. These laps typically on a scrub set of the tyres, so do not look too much at these initial banker times. However, as we progress into the session, then we should get even closer to the 1:19 as we head towards the final part of Q2. Reese Linton then beginning his lap through the first sector now. Very difficult to charge the ERS around this lap, but it is in towards these next two corners where we should see that battery being turned off. As now in towards the oh dear, as actually Reese Linton has invalidated, so not a good start to his Q2 session. Nathan, we talk about how these laps are only they're all normally on a scrub set of the tyres, and so won't actually have too much impact heading to the last part of this session. However, getting that delta on the board is going to be crucial for giving yourself that little bit of a psychological advantage, if you will. That's a very old F1 game reference if you're not familiar, but that psychological advantage really can play into effect on your second runs, and if you've invalidated that initial lap, it's going to play on your mind. So Reese Linton, Nathan, as I reiterate, not a good start to qualifying too.
Of course, and along with Reese Linton, Tamas Gal has also invalidated on his lap, so not a good start for the two in the Hasses, and we can see as well Otis Lawrence as well. Heading back in towards the pit lane, we've got one of the Mercedes, I believe, coming through in towards the final few corners. Jake Benham has invalidated. Jarno will finish his lap. We'll watch him head up towards the line. What will it be for Jarno at the start of Q2? The first lap on the board, it will be a 1:20.399 there. Obviously, we've got a few more drivers coming through. Luke Smith invalidating as well on his run. We've got Duncan Hoffland up into second with a 0.445, and then Thomas Ronhart, where can he go? To the top with a 3.31. Yet again, Thomas Ronhart at the top, but no, Valentine Brufano at the top with a 0.224 now. Going into this, Dan, is he someone we could possibly consider going for pole position?
Oh, Valentine Brufera, former PlayStation Challengers champion all the way back in F1 2020, if I'm not mistaken. This man has got the pace, especially in qualifying, so really do look out for Valentine Brufera come race time. But of course, this is only qualifying for the time being, and we're only in the initial laps of Q2. As you can see, they are a bit slower than what we saw at the end of the first part of qualifying, so those top four times, all of them I would assume are on a used set of the tyres. But now, as the session progresses, these guys will head back into the pit lane, and then we will see everyone come out on a set of the softs. Fingers crossed. Well, they're already on a set of the softs, but a fresh set of the softs at that, and then we will get closer to that 1:19. Nathan, I'm wondering who is going to be the first one to break that barrier.
Well, I think Thomas Ronhart and Valentina too that you could say for it, but I think then again it could be anyone who breaks into the 19s, because I know obviously going through and the qualifyings, the track does get a little bit evolved more, and you can put your foot down a bit more and carry a bit more speed through the corners. So I think anyone, and I think it'll be probably it'll definitely be someone who breaks into the 19s first, but who that is we don't know as of yet. But I think going through in towards these next runs, it's going to be quite interesting, because obviously I think most of those there, maybe Jarno and Duncan probably on a set of the used soft tyres, so they're obviously going to be a little bit slower on pace. So I don't think there's really much we can call from those first 4 runs here in Q2. Obviously, we can see now everyone heading out on towards circuit. The first being Patrick Seepos at the front. I think he's a driver who, you know, I think he struggles quite a lot, doesn't he? Especially in qualifying. So it's nice to see him through into Q2. But I think he's going to have a bit of a struggle going through and towards Q3 today.
You'll have to wait and see with 9 minutes now left to go in Q2. Who is going to be the ones to make it out of this session? This is when the pressure does begin to ramp up ever so slightly. We know 5 drivers are going to get eliminated. All 5 of them in the drop zone at the minute. Reese Linton, Jake Benham, Otis Lawrence, Luke Smith, Tamas Gal yet to show their hand. Lots of invalidations on the initial runs, and we'll see what they can do on a fresh set of the soft compound of tyre. Patrick Seepos was very quick in Q1, was actually the quickest in Q1, just 2 thousandths quicker than Jake Benham and about 6 thousandths or so quicker than his teammate Valentin Bruffair, so he was the fastest, but not by all that much. Just behind him is Tamas Gal. Then we've got, I believe, Otis Lawrence. No, it's Shanika Clay, a name we've not really spoken about too much in this session. He's yet to get a lap time on the board, and we'll see what he can do, and we'll see if we can get both of the McLarens into the next session when we've got 5 all through the way to 15. That's 11 drivers, Nathan, without a lap time on the board. It just makes things so much more difficult to predict.
It does indeed. Obviously, with 8 minutes left, that means we'll probably see everyone do at least 2 runs here in this session. So I think the first runs, yet again, are not really something we'll be able to look at too much in the terms of in the third. You know, in the third run, anyone can get themselves up towards the top. So we can see a few drivers now beginning their second, or for some of them their first runs here in this qualifying session. The first to go out will be Patrick Seepos. In the Williams, of course, part of the race clutch, but here as a reserve tonight, hence why he's not in the Alpine car. He heads through in towards that first sector now, in towards turns 1, 2 and 3, and you want to try and throw the car over to the right hand side and left hand side as much as you can without, of course, hitting that, you know, obviously invalidating your lap, because around here the margins are very tight, aren't they, for track limits, Dan?
Oh yeah, it's very punishing around this circuit with the high-speed nature that is the Losail International Circuit. Of course, not actually purpose-built for Formula 1 cars. I believe the Doha Grand Prix for MotoGP is hosted around this circuit, and that is why these corners weave so much and they're so incredibly flowing. It's because they're actually built for those 2-wheeled motorbikes. Now, Patrick Seepos sliding his way through the second sector, looking a little bit sketchy as he comes to now the end point of this lap. He's done a 52.982 in the first and second sector. We'll see what that is going to amount to as he heads now through the triple right-hander, the flat-out section of circuit. When you hook that up, it is incredibly satisfying. Now to the final braking zone of turn number 15. You've got to get this exit absolutely perfect because it's going to impact your run heading to the start-finish line. No invalidation there. A little bit touch and go as to whether or not that was actually off circuit for Patrick Seepos, but up towards the line to 1 minute 20.075. Tamas Gal to the line though, a 119.847. The first time in the 1 minute 19s today.
Indeed, and we can see Reese Linton coming through. He goes second as well. The second driver to get himself into the 1 minute 19s. And Otis Lawrence into second. They're splitting the two houses with an 8.70. A few more cars coming through up towards the line. I believe that was one of the Red Bulls of Freddie Rasmussen up into third for him. So very nice lap for him indeed in the Red Bull car. We've got a few more cars coming down. Tom Manley has invalidated on his lap. We've got Nicholas Longate coming through in towards the final couple of corners. We'll see what he can set on this initial run here in Q2. Obviously, Duncan Hoffman got to be looking to be in that drop zone after that first run. Obviously, he's also on a lap, I believe, just behind Nicholas Longay. So we'll have a look at him after as Nico goes into P5. We can see Duncan. Where does he go? Up to the line into P7. So a decent lap, but definitely nowhere near being saved through in this session. We got, I believe, Ikebain up to the line. He goes into P10, puts Ronha into the drop zone. Ronha sets his lap. He goes up into second there. So that lap for Tamas Gal, absolutely brilliant there, Dan.
Yeah, lots of drivers having a tough time of beating it. What about Jake Benham as he now approaches the line? Oh dear, only P12 for him. Not a good lap time on the board for the All-Star, and this could see him potentially out of qualifying this evening. Both Mercedes in a bit of a tough situation. Jan Watmere in P10. This is the danger zone for him. If one driver improves ahead of him, then he could see himself out of this session, especially when Shanika Clay is just 4 thousandths back from the Flying Dutchman. So the two Mercedes definitely going to have to go out for another lap. That's going to impact them heading to the final parts of qualifying. They'll have one less set of the soft compound of tyres in their arsenal. but we'll see what happens as this session progresses now. The drop zone at the minute, Shanika Clay, Jake Benham, Ika Boehner, Tom Manley, and Luke Smith, and those are some names that will be very, very surprising to see eliminated. Both Tom and Jake, they were on the podium last time out in Zandvoort, and now they could be facing elimination in Qatar, and that is just the difficult nature of this circuit, Nathan, is that given how close it is, you really got to keep your wits about you. And we'll have a look at the gaps on your timing screen now. Tamas Gal, Thomas Ronhart, Otis Lawrence, they're all very close. But then as the grid fans out, it gets very, very fine throughout the mid-top 10s.
Of course, and I think, one thing we discussed earlier on is the fact that around here, overtaking is quite scarce. It's very difficult to pull an overtake off. So if you're starting near the back of the grid, you've got a lot of work to do to get yourself back up, and it's going to be hard when it's pretty difficult to overtake. So I think, lots of Jake and Jana, they're going to definitely be under a lot of pressure, because the last thing they want to do is be starting in the top, between 11th and 15th around a track, which you can't really overtake on. The only place you can really get moves is by people making mistakes and in that strategy phase, which then again, it's a bit of a touch and go thing. You can go for a different strategy, but there's no, nothing saying it'll work. It could definitely work, but it could also fail heavily. So it's going to be, difficult situation for Mercedes if they can't get their cars through into Q3.
Absolutely, as now this session is beginning to draw to a close. Just 3 minutes left in qualifying, qualifying 2 that is. Tamas Gal has decided to call it quits in the pit lane. He believes that he is safe on that lap time. Interesting to see though that Thomas Ronhart, Otis Lawrence and Freddie Rasmussen, very close to the back of the Haas driver, have not decided to retire, and in fact Otis Lawrence is now making his way out onto the circuit, and so this is big confidence from Tamas Gal, but is that confidence or is that arrogance coming out from the Hungarian? We'll have to wait and see. It seems very unlikely that so many drivers could out-qualify him in this session, but given the fact that this grid is incredibly close, maybe it could happen. Tamas Gal, though, deciding to save that extra set, and it's a big risk that he is taking.
It is indeed, and I think, normally there's many risks being made in Q1 and Q2 in many different races, but the fact that he's the only one to stay in makes it look like even more of a risk. Even Thomas Ronhart on his 8.65 doesn't think that's safe enough, and he's only, 20 tenths back from Tamash's time, so yeah, we could certainly see the Haas 8 in Q2, but then again, I think, when you think of it in hindsight, it's going to be difficult for everyone, or at least another 9 drivers to, get a quicker lap time than them, considering how far back some are. So, yeah, it's going to be a very pressurising situation, especially for the Haas team, who are just going to be sitting there and hoping that people don't find those crucial improvements. But we have got a few drivers now on track, if not everyone has headed out onto circuit. We can see at the front of this train will be the Aston Martin of Duncan Hofland, and obviously behind him will be, I believe it will be, not Shanika Clay, it will be the other McLaren of Otis Lawrence, who I think easily will be getting his way through in towards Q3. And I think with the pace he's shown so far, Dan, he could also be someone that we could look at for a potential pole position.
Yeah, Otis Lawrence always good in qualifying. He's looked it so far in this Q2 session. Currently, the 3rd fastest driver, only a quarter of a tenth off the back, less than that, to Tamas Gal. And so only the finest of improvement from the Welshman could see himself potentially the quickest on the grid. So we'll see what happens then as these laps begin to get underway. I think we're going to watch Otis Lawrence on his run. All respect to Duncan Hofland, of course, but we've already watched him on a run in qualifying. So let's have a look at Otis Lawrence. Not very fond memories of this circuit for the young Welshman. And of course receiving a race ban for his incident with Ishmael Fassi last season in season 15. I believe he might have actually got 2 race bans for that one there. But Otis Lawrence, lucky that Ishmael is not on the grid, so they can't actually come to blows this evening. But he's grown a lot, he's learned a lot since then, and he's looking to retake some of that glory that he has found in the past in WOR, as he now hits the circuit on his final run in Q2, flying his way through the first sector. Otis Lawrence is approaching now the double right-hander at the end of the first sector. We'll see what his improvement is. He's up by 5 thousandths of a second. It doesn't look like much at the minute, but Nathan, given the fact that he's within 200ths of Tamas Gal, that 5 thousandths could be the difference maker from him getting ahead of Tamas Gal and just missing out on being the quickest in qualifying.
Indeed, and obviously with these laps already being so quick, I don't expect him to find vast improvements over this lap, especially in that first sector. He heads down now in towards the end of this second sector. What is he up by in this middle sector? He's up by half a tenth, so he's facing some decent time in that middle sector. Would put him up onto the top of the timings if he can nail it through in towards these final two corners, in towards turn 15, throws it to the left, back on the power as he heads down into turn 16. We'll see what Otis Lawrence can manage to do in this session now as he heads out the final corner. I think he's safe as Duncan Hoffland only managing P7 there, Dan. That might be, that might not be enough there for him.
Duncan Hoffland could be facing elimination in this session. Otis Lawrence goes to the line, a very impressive 400ths quicker than Tamash Gal. Let's have a look, see some more drivers in the final sector. Luke Smith retiring in the pit lane. He is eliminated from qualifying. Thomas Ronhar then through the final corner now and off the exit. Can he go quicker potentially than Otis Lawrence up towards the line for the three-time race winner so far this season? A very nice time indeed from him there. And I saw a big name in that drop zone. Do not tell me that Jake Benham has been eliminated, being on the front row last time out in Zandvoort. He's come to Qatar a changed man, and not for the better, unfortunately. He is eliminated from qualifying alongside Duncan Hoffland, Patrick Sipos, Ikabena, and Luke Smith. Some big, heavy hitters being knocked out of qualifying here. Nicholas Longe, though, Nathan, surviving by just 3 thousandths of a second, getting himself ahead of Duncan Hoffland. But it is Thomas Ronhar, 300ths clear of Otis Lawrence at the very top of the order, and it seems like Thomas Ronhar could be on his way to securing yet another pole position.
Indeed, and I think that's something to be quite happy with going through in towards that race. Of course, obviously, Jarno hasn't looked the strongest. P15 in Q1, P7 in Q2. You know, he's always been over a tenth back from that quickest time, so he's got to find some time, you know, in that Q3 session and kind of figure out why he's not at the top of where he should be. If Ronhart putting in these, you know, top 3, top 2 lap times, I think if he goes onto pole position, it's going to be quite hard for Jarno to, you know, get within 2 or 3 positions of Thomas, because, you know, those at the top, you know, they seem to pull away quite quickly. So, yeah, Jarno's going to be in a bit of a sticky situation if he can't find that crucial lap time here in Q3. But he is through in towards Q3, which is a nice thing to see. And obviously, his teammate Jake Benham, unfortunately, not making it through in towards this third qualifying session. But then again, if needs must be, we could see maybe Jake try and hold up the train a little bit to help Jarno once we get towards those final stages of the race, if Jarno needs it. But then again, he's in the top, so I don't think he'll need it that much whatsoever. But yeah, this Q3, Danny, is going to be quite interesting, because there's lots of drivers who we've talked about throughout this session saying, oh, they could go for pole, they could go for pole, and now we can see at least 3 or 4 of them in Q3 together.
Absolutely, we are looking at an incredible end to qualifying here this evening. One name that I've actually noticed is not in the top 10 is Patrick Sipos being eliminated from qualifying. I don't remember him actually being in that drop zone, but I think it might have been P12 for the Hungarian driver. So yeah, I suppose no Patrick Sipos in Q3. I'll bring us back over to the now. Very few cars out on circuit. To be exact, 0 cars are out on track at the minute. But there it is, your top 10 drivers who are all going to be fighting for pole position. We've got 2 McLarens in this session, 2 Hasses as well. We've got only 1 Alpha Tauri, 1 Red Bull, 1 Mercedes, 1 Williams car, 1 Sauber. So it seems like it's a very spread out grid through coming in towards the final part of qualifying. But Nathan, we've got our list on our screen. The chat has the list on their screen. Who is going to be taking pole?
Oh, well, it's a bit on the spot, isn't it? Going through into this Q3 session, you know what? I said it at the start of the stream in Q1. I'm going to go with Valentin Bruffaut. I said it earlier on. I said he could be one to fight for pole, so I'm going to stick with that. And I think the Williams can put himself on the top spot. What about you, Dan? Who do you think will take pole position here?
Yeah, Valentin was actually my pick, so I'll have to go another direction there. It's difficult to say, but I always like Tom Manley. I favour him quite heavily when it comes to qualifying. Maybe a little bit of bias there. I do quite like Tom, but I'm going to go with him to take pole position here this evening. Although there are lots of good names heading into the final part of qualifying. Let us know, everyone, in the live chat who you think is going to be taking pole position, and we will read out some of your responses. Already I'm seeing a very big range. We've got Freddie saying Tamash Gal for pole position. Ethan is going with Longe for pole. Jatin Panguro is saying Jarno Otmir to take pole position. He's been pretty decent in qualifying recently, although not making Q3, I believe. Or no, sorry, he actually did make Q3, but only qualified 8th last time out in Zandvoort, so maybe that's a bit of a shout, a far cry for a pole position prediction. Lots of them now coming in the live chat. I'll try and keep up with all of them. Giuliano agreeing with you, Nathan, there. Lots of predictions for Tamash as well. We got Sandor and Gareth going for that prediction too. Drees and Ashley, pair of them saying Jarno Otmir. Otis Lawrence getting a few shouts. Nathan, there are so many in the live chat at the minute. That is what I love to see about WOR, that it's so unpredictable. You never know who's going to be at the very top of the order come the end of this session. Any one of these guys really could be on pole.
Indeed, and I think the nice thing is in the chat, for once we get, a big mixture of names, normally we see one or two, but today we've had pretty much everyone on this grid to be, to be predicted for pole. So I think, a lot of eyes on a lot of drivers here in this Q3 session. The first runs don't always mean that much, but as most of them are on a set of the older tyres, but likes of Tamashkel, who retired in Q1 and Q2, I believe, he's someone who could maybe go out on a set of the new tyres because he's probably got 3 or 4 sets of them, so he can afford to take that risk because he's paid off for it in Q1 and Q2. So we'll see what he can do, but many drivers on this grid will definitely be on a set of the used tyres. So don't look too much at the first runs, everyone. Make sure you wait till the end before you can really see who has got that pace to take pole.
We'll have to wait and see then. With 8 minutes left to go in this qualifying session, most drivers are all going to have either 1 or 2 sets in this qualifying session, so no one has actually been able to come out early and set a lap before everyone else on their extra set of the tyres. There's 10 drivers out on circuit. The 2 Hasses are the first ones to come across the line, but everyone now slowing up, trying to space themselves out and get their runs underway. We'll keep an eye on the 2 Hasses of Tamash Gower, who's out first, and Reese Linton in behind, but we've not watched Tom Manley on a run, now approaching turn number 1. I do like to get as many drivers as I can in the picture when it comes to qualifying, because sometimes there's just 1 or 2 drivers that come out all the time. It's boring to look at one particular driver throughout the entirety of qualifying, so we're changing it up, and Tom Manley, he is on a flyer at the minute now through the first sector. You see the blinking red lights through turn number 4 and 5 indicating that he's turned off the battery purple in sector 1. It's looking good for Tom Manley now as he approaches the second sector.
We'll see what he could do in this middle sector now, heading through in towards turn 7, 8 and 9. Obviously, very bit of a sneaky section this is here. Obviously, you don't need to lift at all until you hit that break zone at turn number 10. And you can see there, Tom taking it nicely now on the exit of the corner as he applies the power to head up towards turns 12 through to 14. A flat out section, you don't need to brake or lift at all in this section. A 52.644 there for Tom Manley in that split, and he has taken that purple sector from at least what I can see on my screen as he heads now in towards the final few corners. We can see Tamash go with a 19.846 to the top, along with Reese Linton. Where will he set himself as he heads towards iron? He will go, I believe he invalidated there, Dan, as there's no time popped up for the other Haas driver. So we'll see, what can Tom Manley do? Can he try and take that provisional pole away from Tamash Gal? Yes, he can. A 19.7, a tenth and a half separating the two.
Yeah, very nice lap time from Tom Manley there. Otis Lawrence in P2 for the time being. Freddie Rasmussen has come across the line in 3rd. What about Shanika Clay as he approaches the line now? It's only P5 for him. A very disappointing run from Shanika there. What about Thomas Ronhard, quickest in Q2? He approached the line with a 1 minute 19.662. The first 1 minute 19.6 of this session. Jarno Otmir only in P6. What about Nicholas Longe as he approaches the line? An invalidation for the Ferrari driver. The same goes for Reese Linton and Valentin Bruffair. But I saw not many predictions for Thomas Ronhart in the live chat. It seems like he's proving a lot of people wrong at the minute, Nathan. Currently quickest at the minute, just under half a tenth quicker than Tom Manley. But it's been a very good start to Thomas Ronhart in the final parts of qualifying here.
Indeed, and the gaps between him and Tom are quite small, but then you look back to Otis Lawrence, it's nearly a tenth separating Tom and Otis. So, from second down, there is quite some big gaps through the field, meaning Well, it depends what people did in their first run. Some people might not have pushed too much, obviously, on their laps. Tamas Gali's, nearly 2/10 back off of Bronhar's time, considering what he did in Q1 and Q2. I can't believe he's that far off the pace, so he must have been one of those who maybe not pushed as hard or maybe made a bit of a mistake, as also the last thing you want to do in your first runs in Q3 is bin it, because that means you're out of it for the rest of the session. So maybe some drivers, Tamas and Jarno, taking a bit more of a conservative first run just to get themselves time on the board so they can try and work on it. As you can see them all now heading back in towards the pit lane. Obviously, Reese Linton, Valentin and Nicholas Longo both had invalidations on their laps, hence why they have got no time on the board. And I think they are 3 drivers who will be looking to fight for that top 5. So that definitely makes you think what Jarno and Shanika have to do, because their times are considerably off the pace of Thomas Ronhard. But I definitely can't look past the fact that they're on used tyres, because a 20.1 and 20.2, it's definitely not the quickest time in the world.
To wait and see then, as this qualifying is beginning to draw to a close. We've just under 4 minutes left to go. A little bit of downtime before the final runs begin, and I think now is a better time than ever to talk. Well, I don't really know what to talk about, but to actually, I don't know where I'm going with this. I just wanted to bring in a little bit of a game that we used to play for every single race. It's been a while since we've done it, so why not do it whilst we got some time here in the end of qualifying. We pride ourselves here in WOR as being the World Online Racing League, which means we have fans from all over the globe. So I want you all in the live chat to let us know where you are watching from. Nathan, it's honestly one of the highlights of the stream when I get to see where everyone is watching from. Of course, you and I watching from the United Kingdom here this evening, but it's so incredible to see the variety that we get. Already the first one from LF1 Ghost J is saying he's from Ghana, which is fantastic to see. We got Maris from Germany, we've got Ben from Colorado, USA, Ralph is from France. Oh my word, they are pouring into the live chat now. I see UK from Lucas, Austin is from Canada. Oh my god, I cannot keep up with it whatsoever. I see Trinidad and Tobago, Nigeria, Austria, Romania, from the toilet. Someone is from Switzerland, India. Unbelievable to see, Nathan. We got people watching from every corner of the globe, and oh my god, I cannot keep up with it whatsoever. We got people watching from everywhere, and they are in for an absolute treat at the end of qualifying here.
Indeed, I think obviously we got over 1,800 people in the chat. So also, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because we're only 500-ish subscribers away, I believe, Dan, from the 20,000. Which, looking back at the start of the game, I believe we were just over about 12,000. So we've had such a rise in viewership and subscriptions over these past few months, which is a brilliant thing to see here in the WR League. So make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. But Dan, getting through now in towards the final few laps in qualifying, you can see that the cars just trying to, well, actually you can see here Shanika Clay trying to make a pass there on one of the Williamses. We've got cars actually fighting for position here, and we're only in qualifying.
Oh yeah, they need to chill out. If they make contact, they don't have any time to come back into the pit lane and fix their rear wing. But I think everyone is going to be able to fit very nicely in through the second sector now. We have Otis Lawrence, the lead car at the minute, being tailed by Tamas Gal. These two known for their incredible qualifying pace. So do let us know if you are supporting either of these two. I want to see everyone lighting up the live chat with all the flame emojis that you can, and whoever you're supporting into the final parts of qualifying. I absolutely love to see the interaction that we get here in WOR. Otis Lawrence currently on the second row of the grid. He's off by just over 1 1/4 tenths to the back of Thomas Ronhar. Very, very fine margins, as he will now, Nathan, get his final lap underway.
Indeed, we'll go aboard with Otis. We'll see what he can do on this final run. Heading down in towards that first corner, braking just before the 50-metre board, throwing the car, and you can see we're a little bit wider on the entry, which definitely cost him a little bit of time as he heads through in towards turns 2 and 3, getting back on the power nice and early as he heads his way up towards turns 4 and 5, where we'll see the drivers normally turn their ERS off for a split second to save themselves some for that final straight. He heads through there very nicely so far as he heads his way down now into the hairpin at turn 6, braking yet again just before that curb on the right hand side, up by nearly half a tenth of a second so far. Looking brilliant for Otis, but needs to find at least another 60 thousandths if he wants to see himself at least into P2. He's got to find all the time here in this middle sector then, because that's really your only opportunity.
Yeah, it's very imperative that you find every single millisecond on your qualifying runs, because that is how close this WOR grid is. As Otis Lawrence now hits the final sector, he's up by half a tenth of a second. It is a good improvement, but it's not enough to jump him up onto the onto the front row of the grid, so he needs to find it all in this final sector. Otis Lawrence through turn number 15 for the final time in qualifying. We'll see what he can do as he will approach the start finish line. We'll bring up the telemetry and see what kind of speeds he is reaching, in excess of over 304 kilometers per hour up to the line. It's good enough for P2, but Tamas Gao already going to surpass that by 1,000th of a second. Tom Manley is up next, but we're watching Thomas Ronhaar approach the line now. What's it going to be for the Dutchman? He will set a 1 minute 19.544. A fantastic lap time coming out from the winner of the last 3 races here in WOR. The last few drivers now coming up towards the line. Valentin Brufair, good enough for P5. Freddie Rasmussen onto the front row of the grid. Jarno Opmeer comes across the line, not in that top 2. Thomas Ronhaar on pole position. Frederick Rasmussen making, I believe, what might be his first start of the season in P2. Jarno Opmeer was actually in the top 5 there, but how about that for the end of qualifying? Look at how close this grid is. You lose count of how many drivers on a 1 minute 19.6, but the only man to set a 0.5 of this session, Thomas Ronhaar, dominating qualifying.
Yeah, that is an outstanding lap. A 0.5, from what I know, a 0.6 is classed as, very, very good. So that is an absolutely amazing up there from Ronhaar to take pole ahead of Freddie Rasmussen in second, then Tamas Gao in third, Otis Lawrence in fourth, Jarno Opmeer rounding out the top 5. Then we have Tom Manley, Valentin Brufair, Reese Linton, Shannon Coquet, and Nicholas Longe. And Nico, once again, Dan, just couldn't find that final lap in and couldn't get that lap on, which is definitely not good, especially when it comes towards the race, because once you've had 3 warnings, that is a 3-second penalty.
Yeah, absolutely, and that really can affect you, given how close this grid is and how common that DRS train is around a circuit like Qatar. It's pretty difficult to overtake around this circuit and pull a gap, so we're going to see plenty of drivers following in one big DRS train for what could be the majority of this race. We had a poll in the live chat where you could submit your answer for who was taking P1 on the grid. We had 489 votes in at the end. 47% of them were correct, saying Thomas Ronhaar to take pole position there. So well done to you. Give yourself a little pat on the back. We're just getting now the lobby restarted, heading into the race. We will join you for a little bit of commentated discussion of what we saw in qualifying after a quick word from our sponsors. So we'll see you on the other side of this very short ad break.
It's the home of sim racing leagues. Our management tools allow you to recruit drivers and monitor their ratings and live splits. Find this and more at gridfinder.com. Sign up for free today.
Welcome back, everyone, to the commentators box, where we can digest what we've seen in qualifying. It is yet another pole position for Thomas Ronhaar. Nathan now hunting for that 4th win in a row. I believe that is something we have never seen in WOR. I think we might have had 3 wins in a row, maybe all the way back in season 11 or something, but 4 in a row, I think is unheard of. Thomas Ronhaar could be on the cusp of making history tonight.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? Obviously, coming through towards the season, I think he missed the first couple of races, but to be able to say that, he's going to win 4 in a row, or possibly win 4 in a row, is absolutely, monumental. And the fact that in qualifying he set pole by over a tenth of a second, he knows he's got the pace around here, and he's one driver as well that, we see many people who might take pole drop back in the race. He's one that, he can really work his way through. He can start at the back and finish on the podium. So I think if he's starting first, he's got a very high chance of finishing in first position. But it's just getting that race IQ down to a T. If he can set himself up, maybe going to the final lap, he's in that DRS zone, and he's in, obviously he's going to have DRS. That's what he wants. If he's ahead going into the final corner, he wants to make sure he's set all his battery up. So he's got to make sure he's prepared for the situations, especially on that final lap. If he makes a mistake into someone on lap 1 and he loses the position, doesn't matter too much. It's all down to those final few laps, and obviously down to when he decides to pit. And also, what tyres he goes on to. Obviously, if he goes into a set of hards and maybe a few behind on the mediums or softs, he doesn't need to worry too much about them overtaking. He can pretty much just let them through because he knows they're going to be quicker. But then in the final stint, that's when he's going to come back at them and fly straight past them. So it's going to be interesting what he could do. But he's one of those drivers that if he starts on pole, you can definitely call him for a victory.
Yeah, I mean, normally on this F1 23 game, it's actually a driver who doesn't start on pole that is most likely to take victory. So maybe this is going to be a bit of a curse for Thomas Ronhaar to be starting on pole here this evening, but I think he is going to cope just fine heading into the race. Thomas Ronhaar looking undeniable at the minute. Let's have another little look at the championship standings heading into this race. Jarno Opmeer is leading the way at the minute on 119 points. He's 24 points clear of Ismail Fassi in second, who is not here this evening. So no matter what happens in this Grand Prix, Thomas could win and Jarno doesn't have to score any points. He will still be in the championship lead heading in towards the final 2 races at Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia. Thomas, though, 4 wins in a row. Coming into Belgium just 2 races ago, he was on 9 points and outside the top 10, and all of a sudden he is being thrusted into a championship hunt. He's missed the first 4 races of this season and is only 35 points off the championship lead. It is absolutely incredible to see. Otis Lawrence making his return to the grid this evening on 4 points. He's in 4th position on 57 points. And Nicolas Longue is also back here tonight. He's missed the last 4 races. Last time we saw him was Mexico in round number 5. He sits just 10 points back from Otis Lawrence on 47. He's level with Jake Benham, who's taken 2 podiums so far this season, and Duncan Hoffland, who wasn't here last time out in Zandvoort, but he is looking to have a good race from 11th on the grid today. He's 7th on 46 points, just 1 point clear of Alvaro Carreton, not here this evening. The same goes for Dylan Warren and Joseph Loke in 9th and 10th position. But Nathan, just thinking about Thomas Ronhaar again, to be so close to Jarno Opmeer heading into the final 2 races, it looked very unlikely that even in Belgium, when he took victory, it looked so unlikely that he could fight for the championship. But here we are, 3 races to go at this point. If he wins today and Jarno Opmeer doesn't score a podium like he hasn't done for the last 2 races, Thomas Ronhaar could be within 15 points of taking the championship lead.
Indeed, and I think once Ronhaar gets himself into a position where he's only about 25 points back, which is obviously the points for a race win, that's when you can really count him in to try and take this championship charge. But then again, the thing Thomas is going to be careful of is Jarno outscoring him. If Jarno outscores Thomas in this race, the chances become even more unlikely than they already are. So a lot of work needs to be done by obviously Thomas himself, and also for Jarno's sake. He's got a lot of work to do in the race, but then again, we know he can start a little bit further down, but always still come out with a good result. So yeah, I think Jarno's going to have to try and work that strategy well, and maybe just try and pick his battles a little bit more today. Obviously, in some rounds he might have a bit more fun and just overtake for the fun of it, and defend a bit more. But here he's got to make sure he picks his right battles so he can get himself onto a podium or even looking for a victory. I think if Jarno takes victory tonight, I think he might just about seal it pretty much. Obviously not officially, but I think it'll, I think in theory he'll have it done. But obviously, Thomas on his form, he's not really looking that stoppable right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thomas Ronhaar seemed undeniable. I've said it multiple times so far this stream already, but Thomas Ronhaar really is in a fantastic position heading into this race. But of course, the job is not done. He might be on pole position this evening, but he's got 19 hungry drivers chasing him down throughout the entirety of the 29 laps that we're going to see of Qatar, the first race of our Middle Eastern leg heading into the final few rounds of this season. Nathan, now is the time to get off the fence. Who are you taking to win this race? And I'll pose the question to all of you in the live chat. You've got to tell us who you have to take the victory in this Grand Prix. Nathan, who are you going for?
I'm going to go for Thomas Ronhaar, but Dan, I'm trying to get to the lobby, but I can't get in.
Oh, we're going.
Brilliant.
Let me see if I can, if I'm able to pop you an invite there. But if not, no, I'm not able to invite you or anything, at least through Steam. But maybe if you're able to just go on Luke's profile again. I didn't know you actually weren't in the lobby, but we are about to load in now, Nathan.
Yeah, no, I'll be able to get myself in. It's because I didn't restart my game, which for some reason is an issue now.
Oh.
But once the race starts, then I'll be able to get myself back in. I'm not going to join in between it because I don't want to be responsible for any issues.
Oh dear. Well, I think it's going to be all okay heading into this one. If you're talking when we get into the race start, I'll just make sure to jump in very quickly. But I'll bring us over to the game scene now and read out some of your replies in the live chat. Let's see what have we got here. We've got Reese saying Jarno win. We've got Mihal saying Dan acknowledge me. I've acknowledged you now. Panji is saying for Longay to take the win. Chick Ray is going for Thomas Ronhaar to take the win. Ralph is going for Jarno. We're seeing lots of Jarno Otmirs in the live chat. Dr. Stein says Freddie Rasmussen to take victory here tonight. I'm seeing a lot of predictions. A lot of them are Thomas Ronhaar. Lots of them are Jarno Otmir. Actually, most of them are Jarno Otmir. A few for Freddie. Jack West is going for Dan Field to take the victory. Good to see that Kailani May is still back in her goat in Thomas Ronhaar. Let's see some more spicy predictions in the live chat. Danny to take the win. Blakely to win. Not too sure about that. Tom Manley. I'm seeing Shanika Clay as well. So many names being thrown out there, Nathan. 29 laps. Going to be incredibly exciting as this race will soon get underway, and I think we're in that awkward period where I've talked for too long, can't really pass it on over to you because yeah, that is going to start all of a sudden. So now I've got to ramble on for at least the next maybe 5-10 minutes just in anticipation of the start. We've got 29 laps under the lights of the Losail International Circuit, of course being utilized as a MotoGP circuit. It is made for some incredible Formula 1 races in the past few years, the post-pandemic era when we have come to this circuit. Last time by in season 15, we saw lots of dirty driving. Fingers crossed that here tonight those issues have been fixed, as now the lights are coming on. Thomas Ronhaar leading Freddie Rasmussen to the green. Here we go. Thomas Ronhaar getting a good start heading in towards turn number 1. Tamas Gao also getting away well, but Thomas Ronhaar will cover off Freddie Rasmussen as they approach that first corner. They're all squabbling for positions further back behind. Otis Lawrence looking for a pass in towards turn number 2 on Tamas Gao, but at the front of the order, Thomas Ronhaar leading the way from Freddie Rasmussen in second. Tom Manley doing battle with Jarno Otmir at the minute on his set of the medium compound tyres. Should easily have that move on the Flying Dutchman down to a T. Reese Linton and Valentin Brufair also fighting side by side as they hit the second sector for the very first time. Thomas Ronhaar on a set of the Haas, no less, Nathan, is off to a flying start.
Indeed, and I've managed to get myself back in just in time here, Dan, so I've just got back into the game and we can see moves being made all over the grid. We can see Valentin fighting Maurice Linton there. Nice move by the Williams to pop himself into P7. Further back, we can see some drivers on the softs looking to make moves. That's going to be Luke Smith barging Nicholas Long out the way in towards turn 10. So into the top 10 goes Luke Smith, and now into the bottom 10 goes Nicholas Long. As we can see Duncan Hoffler making a move around the outside, or up the inside, I should say, in towards turn 13, and so does Luke Smith there as they head through and towards this next part of the circuit. Luke Smith is on a rampage here, Dan.
Yeah, Luke Smith barging his way through on his race clutch compatriot Nicholas Longe, looking to do the exact same thing. So he'll look towards the inside line, turn number 15, I believe this is. Longe back into the top 10. Let's have a look then at Tamas Gao, looking to potentially take the lead at the end of this straight on his set of the soft compound tyres. He's through on Freddie Rasmussen. In towards the first corner he goes. Tamas Gao will take the lead ahead of Thomas Ronhaar. Given the fact that Thomas is on a set of the hards that's 2 steps harder than Tamas Gao's tyres, he knows he's got the longevity. I think the Dutchman, who's won the past 3 races in a row, Nathan, he's gonna he's not gonna let that affect him all too much.
Indeed, I think he knows that Tamas will be quicker on this first stint on those soft tyres, but then obviously as we go through into the second stint, chances are they'll be on different tyres and most likely Tamas on a harder set. So yeah, I think for definite here, Tamas will be stronger at the first part, but once we get to that second stint, he probably will be under a little bit more pressure from the likes of Thomas and Freddie and Tom, who are sitting back in second, third and fourth. Obviously, Otis and Yano on the set of the hards as well to take their way through. They will also probably be under a bit of pressure, if not overtaken by Duncan, Luke and Nico, but we know that is, just normal procedures, and that is, it's nothing out of the ordinary for to lose a couple of positions to the soft runners. As we can see, Jake Benham making a move ahead of Ika Bennett to get himself into P12, even though Jake's on the mediums. He's doing a very good job to hold up some of those on the soft, so we're closing in behind Kai Pearson into P14. He's trying to try and make a move ahead of Mika Bennett, but he can't find it as they're heading towards the final corner. That's a crash. That's a big crash at the back of the field. That's Shanekinchi, Philip Prestrader. I think coming together along with, Louis Welch as well. Big spin. I think Philip and Louis came to contact, then Chanekinchi came in a little bit too late and hit one of them and spun round.
Yeah, lots of debris on the circuit as Chanekinchi heads into the pit lane with no front wing whatsoever. No safety car, no VSC has been deployed, so it seems like we're going to keep on racing here this evening. Otis Lawrence and Jan Watmere did some battle with Duncan Hoffland, who's charging on his set of the soft compound tyres, looking up the inside of his fellow countryman, the 2-time WOR champion, the championship leader at the minute, once again being relegated another position. He's lost it now to Duncan Hoffman. I'd imagine Luke Smith and Nicholas Longe are going to be breathing down the Flying Dutchman's neck in the next few laps. DRS has been enabled. They're going to get their first taste of that heading on towards lap number 4. Of course, only one DRS zone along this Losail International Circuit. That should mean that the DRS not too effective, not too important here this evening, but it's always nice to have that little letterbox being opened as you head down at that start-finish straight. It means that Thomas Ronhaar, Freddie Anderson, Tom Manley, they're all going to have an opportunity to keep with Tamas Gao, who's on his set of the soft compound tyres at the minute, Nathan, but he's not pulled away all that much, and that is one thing that I'm worried about for Tamas, given how this is a pretty high degradation circuit. Those tyres are not going to last forever. Then Thomas Ronhaar, Freddie Rasmussen, Tom Manley, as previously mentioned, will be all over the back of him soon.
Of course, and I think obviously with Tamas as well being on those soft tyres, he'll be forced into a bit of an early undercut compared to others, so he could be under lots of pressure and could really be on a bit of a poor strategy coming to the end of the race. But we go 3 wide in towards turn 1. It's going to be Luke Smith and Nicholas Longe fighting to get ahead of Jano Watmere. Jano down to P9, Nico ahead of Luke. Can Luke chuck it back up the inside? He'll go for it. Bit close to contact there, but Nico into P7 ahead of Luke Smith and ahead of Jano Watmere, who's now down towards P9. Obviously, we've got Valentin as well in P10. He's looking to try and close into the back of Jano Watmere, which he can, I think he's got the pace to do so, and then he can easily set himself in that direction and also doesn't have to worry about people behind looking to make overtakes. But now the DRS is open, Dan. Tamas, I think he might be in a decent position considering Ronhaar doesn't want to lose the DRS, so he might just sit behind. But the only issue that Tamas has got is he knows that Thomas at many different opportunities has the opportunity to make a pass.
Absolutely. I mean, there's just I just want to talk about Nicholas Longe and Luke Smith there. That was so beautiful, the pair of them going for the move on Jano Watmere. I like to compare. Well, actually, I've just kind of just had this revelation of sorts that I like to think of this as sort of synchronized swimming. All of these guys fan out at the same time. They swoop and curve their way around the circuit. It's beautiful to watch as Valentin Brufair loses a position now to Jake Benham on his set of the mediums. I wonder if the two Mercedes are going to look to swap very soon as they continue along on towards lap number 5. The entire field, barring Philip Preschneider and Chanekinchi, all in one big DRS train at the minute, as now Thomas Ronhaar closes to the rear of Tamas Gao. The intentions, Nathan, now have been made clear that Thomas Ronhaar does not want to go for the move. He's going to allow for Tamas to lead the way for as long as he can on his quicker set of the soft compound tyres. That's very smart stuff from Thomas Ronhaar.
Indeed, and considering how much is on the soft tyres, you know, Thomas looks quicker at some point. So I think at this point here, you know, Thomas Ronald is in a perfect position, and Tamas Gal is going to be in a very dire position coming towards the end of this race. We can see as well, sitting in third position is Freddie Rasmussen. He's looking quite comfortable on his medium tyres, but then again, he's on that strategy where you've got to go to a set of hards or a set of softs. He's got to go really long or quite short before he makes his pit stop in this race. So we'll see what the Red Bull crew choose to do. Obviously, with behind him being Tom Manley in P4, he's also on a set of the medium tyres. It's going to be quite crucial to see what he could do on his strategy. But we look further back as well. Jan Otmir down to P9 now, but I think luckily with his teammate being behind, he doesn't have to worry too much about any more people overtaking him. So I think he's comfortable in that P9. His best thing to do is try and catch up to the softs once they drop off, and also have a really long overcut and then charge after them on a new set of tyres.
I think those soft compound tyres might have already seen their better days. Jarno Otmir is all over the back of Luke Smith in that final sector, and I wonder if the Flying Dutchman is going to go back into that P8 position that he lost a few laps ago. Thomas Ronhard, meanwhile, going for the move, heading in towards that first corner, through on Tamas Gal. Further back behind, you can see Jarno Otmir looking to the inside of Luke Smith and makes that move stick. So, already on lap number 6 now, those soft tyres showing some big signs of wear here. That means that the mediums should actually be the quickest tyre on the circuit at the minute. Means Freddie Rasmussen and Tom Manley should have no problem of dispatching the Haas car of Tamas Gal. But into the second sector, this is where you really don't want to be caught behind a slower car, because there's no places at all to overtake, and this could be a good opportunity for Thomas Ronhard potentially to pull away from the pack.
Indeed, because obviously Freddie's been looking for moves, but Tamas has defended very well on the back of the Red Bull, meaning he can't really find a pass and put himself into that top 2. Obviously, we saw further back Reese Linton making a pass on Ika earlier on, so we do know now that the hards are probably the better tyre compared to the softs. So you start to think, if the softs are dying after 5 laps, why choose to start on them? Because any advantage you make in the first 3 laps, 3-4 laps, will just get undone by the time you make your pit stop. So it's a bit of an odd strategy here. It is taking these soft tyres to at the start of the race. We can see as well, obviously, Tom Manley looking to close in on the back of Freddie, and that then puts Freddie in a situation where he's kind of forced to try and make a move on Tamas. Otherwise, he's just going to lose a position to Tom, and also Otis Lawrence, who's sitting right behind the back of the AlphaTauri as they head back down towards turn 1, and Patrick Cephas already with a 3-second penalty.
Yeah, it's going to hurt him coming towards the end of this race. And of course, starting on the soft compound of tyres, Nathan, it's a big short-term gain, but it is also a big long-term loss. So you have to really evaluate the risk-to-reward ratio that you get by picking the soft compound of tyres, because Tamas Gal, Duncan Hoffland, Nicholas Longe, they've all made up places in the opening laps of this Grand Prix, but now they're going to have to do their best to, I'm already being clowned on in the chat, they're going to have to do their best to defend from the drivers on the mediums and the hards in behind. But I think if they're able to do that up and towards the pit stop stage, I think maybe this soft strategy could actually work for the likes of Tamas, Duncan and Nico, but only time will tell. We're only on lap number 7 of 29. A lot can happen in this Grand Prix. We've already seen Chanakinchi and Philip Presnader come to blows. Chanakinchi lost his front wing, and maybe that could happen to anyone at any point in this Grand Prix. So Nathan, it's all unpredictable at the minute.
Indeed, it is a big shame, of course, for Chanakinchi at the back of the grid, who was, be looking to try and at least score a couple of points if he could on the board. But he's definitely going to be nowhere close to any points unless there's a safety car that comes out, obviously in the next few laps in this race. As we can see the field looking to head back down with some DRS in towards that first corner. Once again, we can see Ikebana dropping more positions now, down to P15, obviously been overtaken last lap by Shanaka Clay. We can see as well, further behind Duncan Hoffland, though, he's doing quite a good job on the back of Otis Lawrence, so he's not been too, phased by being on a set of soft as Ika, yet again losing another position, this time to Patrick Cephas. So, is it maybe a setup issue? Maybe, Ika just hasn't got that race pace because he's losing so many positions after so many little laps.
Absolutely, it is really difficult for these guys to actually maintain the position when they're just being bombarded at every single minute. Kai Pearson, though, is making it work. He is up the inside of Valentin Brufair and has made a move on his worn-out soft compound of tyres. So a very nice move from Kai Pearson there to get himself into P11. How long is that going to last, though, as those softs will begin to continue to die out even more as this race continues along. I said that Thomas Ronhard was going to try and pull a gap to the rest of the field. That hasn't happened at the minute, but Tamas Gal doing a good job of keeping in the DRS and the slipstream of Thomas Ronhard and defending from the likes of Freddie Rasmussen and Tom Manley. But once again, I don't think these guys really they actually care too much about making the moves at this point in the race. It's only lap number 8. They're coming up towards 21 laps to go this time by. You really can't win the race this early. You don't want to risk going for a move and then it not paying off. You lose a number of positions. So for the most part of the minute, Nathan, we're not going to see too many moves. But that being said, Freddie Rasmussen all over the rear of Tamas Gal. He's not going to look for the move as Tamas pulls to the inside of Thomas Ronhaar. And that is once again making his intentions clear. Wants to allow for the two leaders to potentially fight it out in the next few laps, and then he can reap the rewards of their wrongdoings.
Of course, I was on board with Freddie in that final corner, and you could see he gained within a, I think it was a tenth and a half of Tamas, but he completely didn't use any DRS. He was, fine sticking behind. So I think Freddie's intentions are definitely not to make any overtakes in this race. Of course, we can see as well further down, Jarno Opmeer looking to close in more to the back of Nicholas Longa, who's obviously in that top 7 so far, doing a good job for the Ferrari team. His teammate here for tonight, Kai Pearson, in P11 so far, obviously 4 tenths back off of Jake Bennett, so he's also having a steady race so far. Could be looking for some points, could Kai Pearson here tonight, which would be definitely well deserved. Obviously been here a couple of races, hasn't got any points just yet, I don't think, in this championship, so I think he'll be happy with at least 1 or 2 here tonight. We can see as well further ahead, Tom Manley looking to close into the back of Freddie Rasmussen. That's going to move on the back of the Red Bull. Not really close enough to make him. We know he's got a lot of pace to use. And obviously, I believe Dan was second back in Zandvoort. Wasn't here for that race, but if he can show that pace once again, he could definitely be on for a back-to-back podium here tonight.
Tom Manley, he's looking very quick on the back of Freddie Rasmussen, of course, a part of that AlphaTauri esports scheme. He's essentially the sister team of Freddie Rasmussen. I'd imagine the pair of them have quite a close working relationship. Let's look at that. All the drivers fanning out like a peacock heading in towards turn number 1. Really beautiful to see as Nicholas Longa looks to the inside of Duncan Hoffland. Will make that move stick in towards that first corner. Nice opportunistic overtake from Nicholas Longa, making that 4 places gained in the Grand Prix thus far. The same goes for Duncan Hoffland at the minute. The pair of them making their soft tyres work very early on, and now as we approach lap number 10, those tyres really not going to be feeling their best, but they're doing well to cope with the pressures that is Jarno Opmeer in behind. So the pair of them thinking about their pit stop soon. For the time being, Nathan, the softs seem to be a good strategy.
They are, yeah, they're not doing too bad, I suppose. I think maybe it's just the fact that some drivers further back just aren't doing happy with their pace. But yeah, obviously Nico, Duncan, Luke, they're all doing a decent job on those dots for now. Obviously 19 laps left to go in this race. We know that the hards can go that length. Mediums as well, I think they can just about make that length of lap, but I don't think people will be pitting just yet for a new set of tyres. We can see obviously Duncan as well, he looks quicker than Nico, so maybe we could see a bit of an overtake between those two as in the corners Duncan does catch quite quickly up to the back of that Ferrari car, and Jarno Opmeer's he's only 2 tenths off the back of Duncan, so he doesn't have to worry too much about obviously Duncan being on the soft, so he's in a decent position himself. He's only a couple of tenths off Otis Alonso, who's the second hard runner in the pack. So yeah, I think Jarno's quite happy where he is at this point in the race. You can see them all obviously just trying to cool their engines by moving out that slipstream down towards turn number 1. As they head back into that braking zone. Further back we can see as well Jake Benham obviously in P10, obviously on those medium tyres. He's also in a bit of an odd situation where his strategy is a little bit thrown up in the air, isn't it here, Dan?
Absolutely, it really is just a guessing game at the minute as to what the best strategy is to be on. We've got a whole rainbow on the circuit at the minute. The hards are being characterised by Thomas Ronhaar, Otis Lawrence and Jarno Opmeer. The softs by Tamas Gal, Nicholas Longa and Duncan Hoffland. Then Freddie Rasmussen, Tom Manley and Jake Benham, the only drivers who have opted for a set of the mediums in this Grand Prix. And the mediums always is an interesting strategy because it gives you that flexibility. You can pit early for an undercut and then try and go onto the hards, then you can extend it as long as possible. Maybe try and go for the softs towards the end of the race. It always seems to be favourable to be on that softer compound later on in the Grand Prix. So maybe we're going to see the likes of Freddie and Tom and Jake all try their hardest to go as long as they can in this Grand Prix on this set, as Louis Welch gets a 3-second time penalty. They're going to try go as long as they can, maybe for a set of the softs. As I say that, they're both of them into the pit lane at the end of lap 11. Nathan, that all guaranteed. I think that just guarantees a set of the hards.
Of course, I definitely don't think anyone's onto his softs at this point, especially the 2 Red Bulls who are on the mediums. But yeah, a bit of an odd strategy there, is it, to be so early off of a set of the medium tyres as you can see a few drivers battling into turn 1. We can see Patrick Seepos going for a move on Shanika Clay, bit of contact in towards that first corner. Oh, and Patrick nearly off the circuit for a second, definitely close to him also in a bit of a spin on the exit of turn 1. So not ideal there for the Williams driver here for tonight, but all hard for those apart from Ikebana onto a set of medium tyres. So he's going to tote those very, very long compared to at least what Freddie and Tom did.
Yeah, very bold from Ikebana to go on that set of the mediums. They only lasted 12 laps for Tom Manley and Freddie Razerson. I have no doubt in my mind that they can go longer at this point in the race, but you also do have to think about the fact that when you are later on in the Grand Prix, you're actually lighter on fuel, so you're not putting as much wear into the tyres, and that is why typically you can actually see drivers go a few more laps on the same set of the tyres later on in the race as they would be able to in the first part of the Grand Prix. It's all about fuel management. It's all about just the mind games of this race. And one thing I've just noticed, Nathan, Thomas Ronhard now pulling out of the 1 second window that Tamas Gal needs for DRS. He's not going to have any heading in towards turn number 1. That is his sign to come into the pit lane. And all of a sudden, Thomas Ronhard leading the way at the minute, and Otis Lawrence in behind, 1.3 seconds off the back of him, does not have that DRS to try and close to the rear of the Sauber car.
Of course, but obviously Otis has used a lot of ERS there, used about 30%. Down to turn 1 to get himself back within a second of Thomas Ronhard, which he's done comfortably. He's now back, of course, within that DRS of Ronhard. First, obviously, Jan Watmir is on now up into 3rd position after all those making pit stops, so he's also in a decent position. And we could see the two championship protagonists have a bit of a fight as this race progresses. Obviously, Thomas and Jan are just separated by just over 1 second as they head down towards turn number 6. But obviously, it's Freddie who had that undercut, made it work. He's now in P13 ahead of Tom Manley, of course, and then Tamas Gal popping himself into 3rd position. Net, obviously, on the grid so far. Obviously, Kyle Pearson, he dropped back to about 2.5 seconds from the back of Duncan Hoff, and so he's got a lot of work to do on those medium tyres to try and make it work here tonight. But then again, he's on better tyres, he's on newer tyres, so he's definitely got capabilities to do so. But it's just with that DRS being down to turn 1, being so strong, it's very difficult for anyone to try and make anything work there and to try and get yourself back within a second of anyone.
Yeah, it can be very difficult. Otis Lawrence now within the 1 second window to get the DRS on Thomas Ronhard means he should be able to defend from Jarno Watmir, Jake Benham very, very well. And actually, Jake Benham was outside the 1 second window of DRS and Jarno Watmir. Now he'll come into the pit lane, followed in by Luke Smith. That is the last of the drivers who started on a set of either the mediums or the softs to come into the pit lane. They've done very well to extend their tyres as long as they can, but now that has created a big chasm throughout the top of the field. The top 3 all in one small DRS train fighting for the lead at the minute. Valentin Brufair, though, a far cry from where they are on circuit. He's 2.5 seconds to the rear of them, meaning that he's going to be very vulnerable to attacks from Reese Linton and Shanika Clares. Tom Manley sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, will move ahead of Freddie Razerson, and with that undercut strategy, Nathan, that should be the net race lead.
Indeed, and I think obviously with Freddie and Tom working together quite nicely at this moment, those two could definitely be on a winning strategy in the sense of they've got to get past pretty much 2 cars instead of want to try and fight for the lead. So I think, yeah, those two doing a decent job up in that net top positions. Obviously, we can see Tamas Gal in 3rd net. He's obviously on those newer medium tyres, so he'll also be looking to try and make some moves in this race to get himself a little bit higher. But I think for now he's comfortable where he is, and obviously he will be fighting more for it near the end of the race. Luke Smith popping himself down in P19, obviously just on the back of Ikebana. So of course there, I don't think that strategy will work because he's on some of the oldest tyres who've pitted and he's near the back of the grid.
It's really not going to work out for him at the end of this race. Ikebana, of course, was outside the top 10 for the majority of this Grand Prix thus far, as now the leaders come into the pit lane. Jarno Watmir doing his very characteristic, extending the stint as long as he can. We know how fond Jarno Watmir is of an overcut, and he's going to try and pull that off here this evening. Thomas Ronhard, Otis Lawrence and Valentin Brufair, all of them into the pit lane on to a set of the mediums to end off this Qatar Grand Prix. Let's see where they come out in relation to Tom Manley, who is all over the rear of Philip Presnod. A healthy dosage of DRS for the AlphaTauri driver should make it the easiest move that he's going to have all evening today. And another fastest lap for the fastest man out on circuit. Tom Manley, Nathan, having a great race.
He's indeed, and well, we'll see what he can do. Obviously, in the positions he's in, obviously you can see, obviously getting in between Philip Presnod and Freddie. Philip's going to be a bit of a holding up. He's going to start holding up the train, isn't he? Because look at that gap now already increasing, and this isn't good here for Freddie at all. He's going to go to the outside here of Philip. Philip's going to try and defend it, pushes Freddie a little bit wide on the exit of the corner, and Freddie does get himself ahead, and now has lost that DRS to Tom Manley. That's crucial here for Freddie Rasmussen. Now Freddie's going to be holding up Tamas Gellan. Tamas tapping the back of the Alpine through and towards turn 8, in towards turn 9 now. What can he do towards here? Has to go to the zone at turn 10, but a contact and nearly spinning round there for Tamas Gellan. Tamas definitely not happy with Philippe at all, who's hodged up the train here to try and probably help Luke Smith get a little bit closer to this running pack.
Oh, I get that you're quicker, Tamas, but you've got to be patient. You can't just, bully a driver around the circuit. So that's going to be a bit of a naughty one there from Tamas Gao. He's lost a lot of time to Freddie Rasmussen, but he's going to be able to pull that one back. However, Philip is just kind of sitting in the middle of the circuit, still staying out on his set of the hard compounder tyres. And oh dear, what's happened there with Nicholas Longe? I think he might have got a tap maybe from Duncan Hoffman, because now Duncan is all over the rear of the Ferrari driver. Nicholas Longe lost all momentum heading into that first corner, and he might have to spend yet another lap following in the wheel tracks of Philip Presnader.
Indeed, look at how slow Philip's going, and there's nowhere for Nico to go here. He's lost a second already. This is crucial for Nico to get past, otherwise his chance for a top 3 is pretty much over. The gap's 1.2 seconds as I head in towards turns 4 and 5. Still defending hard is the Alpine. It's like watching Sergio Perez all over again here, but this time at Qatar, not at Abu Dhabi, as I head into turn 6. Nico has to send it around the outside this time if he can. He's got the outside line, and Philip going to try and hold it back, but there's nothing he can do this time around. But look at that gap, and it's 1.9 seconds. And then we can see Duncan Hoffman making a pass, or trying to make a pass here on Philip, and close the contact, and nearly Duncan going right as Thomas Ronhaar. They're looking to make a move.
Yeah, Thomas Ronhaar up the inside of Philip Presnader, who's just getting bullied by the entire field. What has Philip got to gain from defending all of these positions as hard as he is? He'll get out of the way of Kai Pearson and Jake Benham, but very interesting strategies, I gotta say, from the Alpine driver, as now Luke Smith is going to be all over the rear of his teammate. He'll get out of the way very nicely there. So Philip Presnader going to be relegated down into 16th position. I think that has got to be a call to come in to the pit lane at the end of this lap. Nicholas Longe lost so much time in all of that fighting. He'll have both, all actually of Duncan Hoffman, Thomas Ronhaar and Otis Lawrence breathing down his neck in towards that first corner. Here comes Thomas Ronhaar looking to get 2 into 1. He's through on Longe, he's through on Duncan Hoffman, and now the former race leader in this Grand Prix will get himself up into a net P4.
And obviously with Thomas and all those guys behind being held up, he's got a lot of work to do now to the top of the field, but I'm sure he's one who can try and fight his way to the top and get himself back to the top, no matter what situation he's presented with. So we'll see what Mr. Thomas Ronhaar can do. We can see further back, though, obviously, like Jan Ortmeijer coming down in P16. He's got a lot of work to do there. I think, Jarno is quite far back, so a lot of overtakes are recorded here by the Flying Dutchman, of course, but also he's another driver which, no matter what he's presented with, he can try and make it work, or at least try and make it work somewhat. And now Jarno is presented with Philip Presnader, who's sitting ahead. Hopefully Philip doesn't hold up Jarno too much here.
Yeah, Philip Presnader, very interesting tactics employed by the Alpine driver, but I assume that Jan Ortmeijer is going to have no problems getting through on him. Otis Lawrence, meanwhile, through on Duncan Hoffman with the fresher medium tyres strapped onto that McLaren. Nice, easy move from him there, and indeed, Jan Ortmeijer has got himself up into 15th position. He's got the freshest medium tyres in this train, but of course he's lost a lot of track position, so we'll see how it works out for him as this race continues. Patrick Sipos, Reece Linton still leading the way at the minute. The pair of them yet to come into the pit lane. Don't believe they're going to pose any threat to Freddie Rasmussen or Tom Manley. Another time penalty for Patrick Sipos there, as Freddie Rasmussen now moves into the net race lead of this Grand Prix. Thomas Ronhaar, Nathan, has got to make up 2.5 seconds at the minute, but once he's into that DRS range, he's going to have much fresher medium tyres than the leaders, and I wonder how long is it going to take for him to get into that window and go for these moves.
It's going to be close, but we can see further back Luke Smith making an overtake there on Nicholas Longe. So to cut you off there, Dan, but we could see moves being made further back, and we can see Nico going back for the send on Lucas. They head into turn 6, but just couldn't quite get it done on those older hard tyres. And now I'm starting to think here, that strategy there for Nico, going early, going onto a set of hards, hasn't really worked, because he's now, he's on some of the older tyres on the circuit and already losing positions to those who are on barely newer tyres. So Nicholas Longate going to have to fight a lot to keep himself into a points position here tonight. Louis Welch, unfortunately, with another 3-second penalty, but he's all the way down in 19th after a pit stop anyway, so I don't think that Louis is going to make much work here in this race. As we can see, Louis just passed Philip Presnader along with Josh as well, who's in P17. Further back, we can see Owen Ortmeijer making a move ahead of Cabana now, looking to try and get himself ahead of Valentin Bruffaut, who one put was looking to, say he's going to look for pole position, but obviously in the race it hasn't gone as planned for him at all, as we can see Patrick and Reese finally make their pit stop. 17 laps on the hard. Surely here it's soft tyres for the 2 race pushes, and of course it will be.
Soft tyres towards the end of this Grand Prix. How's that going to work out for them? We'll have to wait and see. Thomas Ronhaar, meanwhile, he has made his way into the DRS range of the top 3 and will be hounding the back of them as this race continues along. Tom Manley still does have the fastest lap in this Grand Prix, I'd imagine. In the next 2 runs, though, either Patrick Sipos or Reese Linton is going to snatch that away from him. Doesn't make a difference. We don't do the fastest lap point here in WOR, but Freddie Rasmussen still leading the way. Nathan, as this race progresses, those hard tyres are actually going to get a bit quicker in comparison to the mediums. So Thomas Ronhaar has got to make these moves very, very soon. Already, Tamas Gal hasn't really had an opportunity to actually attack the 2 leaders at the minute, suggesting that those tyres already are beginning to fall off in comparison to the hards. Thomas Ronhaar, meanwhile, all over the rear of him. So is Otis Lawrence, and we could see a worldie of a battle heading now in towards the final sector.
Indeed, and we'll see what Tamas Gal can do. He's got to defend hard here from Ronhaar, unless if he can't do that, he's got to push an attack for Tom Manley to try at least get himself a bit of a buffer as they head down to turn 1. They all head out through the final corner. We've also got Otis Lawrence right on the back of Thomas Ronhaar. They're heading towards turn number 15, back down towards turn 1. DRS has been enabled, and now we can see different drivers using battery. We can see, obviously, Thomas just dumping the battery down to turn 1, makes a pass already nearly before the start-finish line to get himself ahead of Tamas Gal. We've got Otis sitting in behind. He's also going to be looking to make a move ahead of Tamas Gal. Can he do so? No, he can't. He's also went for a minute to look around the outside of Thomas Ronhaar as they head into turn 1, and this time goes up the inside of Tamas Gal, who went very deep into turn 1, and we could see here Tamas Gal losing 2 positions in the matter of a couple of corners, pushes Otis a little bit wide. Otis gets a position back ahead as they head into turns 4 and 5, and now, well, Tamas Gal looking in a very, very pressurised situation here.
With the inside line, Otis Lawrence makes that move work. He followed Thomas Ronhaar through, and a very nice, well-made move for Otis Lawrence there. A very nice overtake to get himself into P4, but Thomas Ronhaar now on the precipice of retaking his lead in this Grand Prix. We're at 10 laps to go, 9.5 I'd say at this point. How long are those mediums going to last in comparison to the hards? Freddie and Tom, the best thing they can do is try and hold up Thomas Ronhaar as long as possible and allow for him to burn up those medium tyres. Then once they're completely dead, just follow in his wheel tracks, and then when the time is right, strike for the move. However, still come out towards 9 laps to go. A lot can happen in this Grand Prix. Jan Waltmeier has made his way into the top 10, having a little bit of trouble making his way through traffic, and I wonder, was the overcut the right strategy for the Flying Dutchman? We'll see how it works out for him as Thomas Ronhaar gets a little bit of a slide on off the exit of the final corner. Maybe could open the door for Otis Lawrence heading in towards turn number 1, but it seems like for the time being there's going to be no moves made at the very front of the order, and so Freddie Rasmussen still continues to lead here.
Of course, and we're back now towards those single file normal proceedings. No one making moves, everyone just sticking behind and just waiting for those final laps to come upon us, and then we can see some moves being made. But I think we can clearly see that Thomas and Otis are a lot quicker than Freddie and Tom ahead, and you can see they're just not even bothered about making a move just yet. But obviously, Jan Waltmeier being down in P10, he's looking to make moves. He's looking to get himself ahead of Kai Pearson here in towards turn number 6. He's got that inside line. He breaks late. That goes to remove Kai's a massive side and need to collect Jarno on the way in towards turn 6. Big side there from the Ferrari, but Jarno not phased at all, and now into P9 on the 4 lap. Old mediums is stronger than anyone in terms of the times, which means he's probably stronger than anyone, or at least most people, in terms of that race pace now. So we'll see him look to try and get a move ahead of Luke Smith as soon as possible. Also, we can see as well Josh getting another 3-second penalty. He's down in P14. Definitely not a good race for him at all. Obviously been here, I think this is his 2nd appearance or 3rd appearance in this season. Definitely not looking too strong at all in the red book. So we can see Arno now within 3/10 of Luke Smith. He's really eager to get some moves done now, and also we can see yet again Otis Lawrence right on the back of Thomas Ronhaar here.
Yeah, Jan Waltmeier looks so much more confident through the corners than Luke Smith in front of him, and already the Dutchman with a great exit heading in towards turn number 1. A little bit of ERS being utilised by the Flying Dutchman. Jake Benham meanwhile further up the order looking for the move on Duncan Hoffman. He will see himself now into P6 and on the back of Tamas Gal, whose medium tyres are going to begin to slide off ever so slightly, but Jan Waltmeier sticking it in P9. I think Luke Smith might use a little bit of the battery there to try and defend from from the Dutchman on lap number 22 of 29. The leaders all following in one big train, stemming all the way back to P10 in this Grand Prix. So really, Nathan, it is anyone's race at this point. You can't quite call it yet. Lots of different guys on different tyres with different varying levels of wear applied to them. This could go any which way.
Of course, and I think if Freddie and Tom can make this work, that would be an absolutely brilliant strategy from them. Obviously, pitting earlier on, I'm thinking, you know, we sit a bit too early here for these to pit onto a set at the hards, but so far it's working out brilliantly for the two at the top, obviously, as well. We can see Tamas Gell, he's going to also be a driver that could have a part to play in the result of this race in terms of the fact he's going to have to try and defend from Jake, Duncan, Luke. You know, we know that Tamas isn't the fastest in this train, so he could definitely do a bit of holding up here, and all you can see already Jake Benham tapping the back of the Haas as they head in towards the final couple of corners now. Then in towards the final corner they go, and we could see a couple moves being made here down to someone, because we've got Luke Smith right on the back here of Duncan Hoffman trying to close in down towards someone, using a bit of battery here to get past the Aston Martin, pulls to the inside line, and I think we'll comfortably get the move done here ahead of Hoffman, who's on those 11 lap old hards. Bit of contact then to turn one, I think, Dan.
Yeah, Luke Smith making that move stick up the inside, but Duncan Hoffman, tell you what, he did not want to back down whatsoever on the rear of that move being made. Now Jan Otmir, the door is open for him to try and go on the attack. 5 lap pressure, medium tyres strapped onto that Mercedes car in comparison to the older hards of Duncan Hoffman. We saw earlier on in this Grand Prix Duncan Hoffman make an overtake on Jan Otmir, utilising his fresher tyres, and now it's the Flying Dutchman's turn to try and make the moves work. But following in this big train, it just makes it so difficult to actually make these moves stick, and so Jan Otmir really is just stuck in the mud at the minute in P9. It's still a points paying position, but when you consider the fact that Thomas Ronhaar, his potential championship rival heading into the last few races of the season, he is on track for another podium, a potential 4th win in a row. It's not good enough from Jan Otmir, Nathan. He's got to pull his finger out soon. He's got to go for these moves.
Yes, indeed. We can see, obviously, further up, we can see Luke Smith looking to try and get ahead of Jake Benham. Obviously, the Mercedes could work together to try and help Jarno get himself a little bit further up the order, but at the moment, I don't think Jake can really do much, because the last thing he wants to do is hold people, because then it really puts Jarno in a bit of a, you know, an uncomfortable situation as they all head back down towards turn 1. Though we've got Tamas Gell under a bit of pressure here from Jake Benham in towards that first corner. Can any moves be made? You can see Tamas defending and also using Otis also there for a bit of slipstream into that first corner. Jake goes round the outside, but he's gone very deep there, hasn't he? He's not made that work whatsoever, and also he's lost a bit of time bringing Luke Smith back closer to Jake Benham. Also, I believe that was Jarno Otmir getting past Duncan Hoffman there as well down towards someone. So now Jarno into P8. Obviously, will be in that P7 due to that penalty for Jake Benham, as Jake already over the back of Tamas and looking to try and get a move, but just can't find it to, just can't get it to work.
Yeah, wow, Jake Benham really looking really hungry for this overtake on Tamas Gell. He's going to have the quicker tyres at this point in the Grand Prix, but he just can't quite find that overtake in towards the second sector, where it's the most difficult to overtake along the circuit. We'll have to wait and see how we end off in this Grand Prix. We're coming up towards 5 laps to go at the end of this lap. Freddie Anderson still leading ahead of Tom Manley. Thomas Ronhaar in 3rd position. Who is going to be the next one to have a crack of the whip and go for an overtake? Jake Benham has looked very feisty on the rear of Tamas Gell in the last lap. Wasn't quite able to find that move. I wonder if sparks will fly here, and maybe we can see a potential battle where the likes of Luke Smith, Jan Otmir, Duncan Hoffman can pick up the pieces. Jan Otmir has the freshest tyres out of anyone in this train, but you wouldn't know it from the lack of overtakes that we've seen from the Flying Dutchman. Jake Benham completely flat on the battery, trying to go on the attack of Tamas Gell. Just doesn't look like anything's giving at the moment. On towards lap number 25, Nathan. Seems like we've hit a wall.
It doesn't. No one can make moves. They're all gaining in the corners, but on the straights, no one's gaining in or losing anything, so they're all just stuck 2-3 tenths behind each other. So yeah, definitely not a good situation at all for Jarno. What maybe we can see in the corners, he gets within a tenth of some drivers, at least at some points, nearly side by side, but on the straights, there's just nothing he can do whatsoever here in this Mercedes. Can he try and send a move here on Luke Smith? No, he can't. He's a little bit too far back for now. Luke looking to get close to the back of Jake Benham through there. Obviously, Jake is on those 11 lap old hards, so we will be a little bit slower than some of these in the train. So we'll see what Jake can try and make of this here. Obviously, with that penalty, we'll probably drop him outside the points, or if not, drop him down to a range P10 in the train. So he's also got a lot of work to do to try and recuperate what has happened to him with that penalty earlier on in the race. We can see at the top, we can see yet again Otis and Thomas. They're not still not looking to make moves, but then again, you start to think, Dan, is it the fact they just can't make a move now?
I don't know, maybe they're saving everything into the final parts of this Grand Prix. We just don't know at this point. We do know one thing for sure. Luke Smith is all over the rear of Jake Benham off the exit of the penultimate corner. Could Jake Benham now begin to struggle? Has he used up too much of his resources? Is Luke Smith going on the attack? You can see on the MFD that he's using up the battery, and here he comes heading down in towards turn number 1. Luke Smith looking to go onto the attack. Jake Benham defending that inside line, squeezing Luke Smith to the extremities of the circuit. They've come to blows. Little bit of contact. Tamas Gallagher's been spun, and all of a sudden lots of drama. Jake Benham off the circuit. Luke Smith losing a number of positions. Tamas Gal into a spin. Jan Ortmir, Duncan Hoffland all picking up the pieces. The pair of them have now made up 3 places in this Grand Prix.
Indeed, I know that obviously puts lots of Jan Ortmir up into P5, but obviously Luke and Jake, we know it's not the first time they come to blows at all on a circuit. I believe the race a couple weeks ago in Spain, they got into a bit of contact, so it's not the first time those two have gone into a little bit of contact, so we'll see what happened after that with the shoes. I'm sure the shoes will be having a word with that, as we could see. You know, they went very deep into turn 1, didn't they? Completely off the circuit. But of course, it is Lejean on there to get himself back within that top 4. Now he's on the better tyres. As I saw a message in the chat earlier on saying that having a tyre advantage doesn't matter too much at this point in the race due to that DRS train, but we'll see what Jano can do here. Obviously, with that, you know, newer tyres, he's also got those ahead. Freddie and Tom, 14-lap-old hards. Their tyres will be screaming by the end, surely, Dan.
Absolutely, and I'm wondering what happened with Tamas Gal, Nathan. It didn't look like there was any contact with himself.
He got a tap, apparently.
Well, it doesn't look like it, though. Maybe there was a bit of desync, potentially. And that, you know, I know netcode is a big issue on iRacing and things, but that's a very interesting one that Tamas Gal went for a spin, but his race has essentially come to an end. Luke Smith still has a decent shot at getting points, maybe Jake Benham as well, if he's able to get that penalty removed. Here comes Thomas Ronhart looking to the outside of Tom Manley. This is the first sign of life that we've seen in the last few laps for Thomas Ronhart, but Tom Manley does a really good job of staving off the advances from the Sauber car. So Nathan, heading into now the last 3 laps of this race, the top 4 all looking for a monumental scrap, but Jan Ortmir closing in soon as Freddie Rasmussen. That is a big one. 3-second time penalty for track limits there, and the Great Dane now is facing a potential loss of this victory, and all of a sudden Tom Manley is your leader here.
He is in there. You can see obviously Freddie probably dropped down towards P7 with that penalty, so a big shame indeed for Freddie Rasmussen to get a penalty when he's leading the race, looking in a comfortable position to try and win the race here tonight with only 2 laps left to go. So he's got a lot of work to do to try and, you know, try and make something work, obviously, here with that penalty. But then you can start to think, you know, obviously Tom and Freddie have been working together all race long. Do they now, you know, work together even more? Freddie try and hold up the others behind. If Tom can get himself a move done, we'll see what happens once that final laps start to happen. We can see as well Otis on the back of Thomas Ronhart in towards the final corner, back down towards turn 1, but Otis has gone wide, lost a bit of time on the exit as they head into turn 1, and now Thomas, you can see, looking to try and push it. He's not using any battery yet, Dan, so he's not even keen to make a move. You know, you thought by now he'd look to try and make a move, but no, not keen to make a move at all. And now, back around the outside, what we saw him trying to do earlier, and yes, again, a bit of contact between the two, and he just can't find himself ahead at the AlphaTauri.
Well, 2 big stories at play here. Thomas Ronhart looking for his 4th win in a row. Tom Manley, could you believe it, looking for his first ever PC Tier 1 victory. The Season 12 Xbox champion has yet to capture glory here in WOR PC Tier 1, but tonight could be the night. Thomas Ronhart once again trying, hassling all over the back of him. All of a sudden now, Jan Ortmir has arrived onto the scene. We are set, Nathan, for a potential world-beating finale. Freddie Rasmussen with a time penalty. Tom Manley is your race leader at this point. Thomas Ronhart in a net P2. Otis Lawrence in 3rd. Jan Ortmir on the precipice of getting a podium, but these guys, they don't want to be too sure because of course Freddie Rasmussen might have that time penalty removed. We just don't know at this point. Heading into the final lap of the race, it is all to play for now. They've got to lay everything on to the line. We've got 3,500 viewers watching in the live chat. Thomas Ronhart, 3 races in a row, he has taken victory, but now he's facing some serious competition here in Qatar as he's all over the back of Tom Manley, heading in towards the the first corner for the final time in this Grand Prix. It doesn't look like it as I go very late on the brakes. Is that the last opportunity gone for the Dutchman? He tried sending the move up the inside there. Tom Manley though with the line. There was really just no opportunity for Thomas Ronhart to make that move stick, and Tom Manley now leads here.
Indeed, as they head through towards turns 4 and 5 for the final time, can Thomas try and make a move down into turn 6? He's a little bit too far back, though, I think. On this occasion, no, he can't find a move at all, but you can see he's got a lot more pace to give into that braking zone, and Yana Watmere still stuck in P5. He can't find anything to get past Otis Rons here, who also can't get past Thomas Ronhard, so we'll see what happens towards the line, obviously battery-wise, because Tom Manley has a little bit more to use than Thomas Ronhard, nearly 20% more. So here, I think Thomas is definitely in a bit of a handicap situation. Of course, he's got less battery to use, meaning that Tom could just burn it all the way down towards the line. So I think a lot of effort needs to be put in here from Thomas Ronhard to get the perfect turn 15 and turn 16. But I don't think anything can here stop. I don't think anything here can stop Tom Manley, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely, is now in towards the final few corners for the final time in this race. Thomas Ronhard, is he going to try and send a move into the final braking zone? It doesn't look like it's possible. So off the exit of the final corner for the final time, Freddie Rasmussen on circuit will take victory here, but with the penalty applied, it is going to be Tom Manley taking his maiden PC Tier 1 victory. Thomas Ronhard, the streak is over, but he's found himself, oh my word, as they all crash further back behind. Thomas Ronhard still finds himself into P2. It's a welcome return to the podium for Otis Lawrence and Jarno Opmeer. The podium drought continues. He ends up P4 in this Grand Prix. That is now 3 races in a row that the Flying Dutchman has not finished in the top 3. But it's all smiles down at AlphaTauri. Tom Manley second last time out in Zandvoort, and now he takes victory here in Qatar.
Indeed, and obviously with that second and fourth for Thomas and Yana, that puts the gap in the championship to 29 points provisionally going through into the next 2 rounds. So still, that championship gap is coming down and down as the laps get on. But then again, there was lots of things happening in that race, so we could see many penalties and we could see many results change for many drivers afterwards. So either way, brilliant race. And also, I didn't expect to see Nicholas Long get into the top 10 because he had a bit of a scrappy strategy, didn't he? He didn't look too strong at all, and he's got himself back into the top 10, so very nice job from him. But obviously Freddie Rasmussen, big shame to, obviously finish down in 7th after doing such a good job this race. No one could stop him at all. He, comfortably leading, and now down to P7.
Yeah, wow, incredible stuff we've seen in Qatar. Gotta say, it wasn't the most exciting race throughout the entirety of it, but it was a very fun watch towards the end, and it has been a very wild ride for Tom Manley here in WOR. He's had seasons where he's been finishing on the podiums week in, week out. He's had other seasons, more recently actually, where he's just not been able to do anything at all. I think he's scored at some points maybe 1 point throughout the entirety of a season, but now it really has turned a new leaf for the AlphaTauri driver. 2 podiums in the last 2 races, and he's taken victory here tonight. A very strong drive from Tom Manley. Thomas Ronhard, it wasn't meant to be to take that 4 wins in a row, but 3 is still mighty impressive with second to his name as well. He'll draw that gap to just 29 points between himself and Jarno Opmeer. He should also see himself ahead of Ismail Fassi in the title fight and get himself officially into second. And then Otis Lawrence finding his way on to the podium. A very nice drive. I think the top 3 all very deserving of that one there. We'll run down now the pre-stewards results finishing order. Tom Manley taking victory ahead of Thomas Ronhard. Otis Lawrence in 3rd. 4th place is Jarno Opmeer. 5th, Duncan Hoffman. A good haul of points for him there. Luke Smith in 6th. After the penalty, Freddie Rasmussen relegated all the way into 7th. 8th for Valentin Brufair. 9th is Nicholas Longate, and Shanika Clay rounds out the top 10. Reese Linton managed to get himself up into 11th on his softs. Kai Pearson 12th. 13th was Jake Benham. 14th, Josh Idowu. Tamish Gow in 15th. Louis Welch 16th. 17th, Philip Presneda. Chanakinchi 18th. 19th was Patrick Sipos. And rounding out the grid was Ika Boehner. Nathan, that brings us to the end of what was a very interesting Qatar Grand Prix, and it's come up very nicely for Tom Manley today.
Indeed, obviously, as you said before, finished second back in Zandvoort, now first here today. He's on a really good form of points, so maybe if he was, doing this a bit earlier on, we could have hoped for him to try and fight for the championship. I think he's a little bit too far down the grid in order to try and fight for it this season. But either way, he's done a brilliant job, and I think either way, it's still going to be good for him to, he's going to increase his confidence, isn't it? He knows he can fight at the top. He knows he can take victories here in the top tier of league racing. So yeah, we'll see what he can do in the next couple of races. But of course, I think this race has been a bit dull in terms of the on-race, on-track action. But obviously, it's been nice to see drivers work their way through with different strategies to make them work. I think either way, Yana what Mia. He's down in P16. You're thinking at one point, oh, will he be able to get very high on the grid? But in the end, he's still got himself up in towards P5. So a brilliant job for him, and also those who pitted onto the mediums and those who pitted onto the hard. So I think this race today was definitely down to strategy.
Yeah, the race wasn't the most exciting that we've seen throughout the entirety of the season, but with that being said, it was actually pretty good. But of course, in comparison to some of the worldies that we've had so far this season, it's going to be very difficult for all of them to be like that. Qatar just isn't the best Grand Prix for racing as well, and so yeah. I don't think we can call this a bad race, but it definitely wasn't one of the best ones. We're not going to really remember this race in the future. But certainly Tom Manley is going to be remembering that. Of course, Freddie Rasmussen, this is all provisional, but Freddie Rasmussen getting that penalty. Maybe, Nathan, he could get that removed and spoil Tom Manley's party. But something tells me I don't see that happening. I think Tom Manley, he's worked for it. He's very deserving of the victory today, and I'm very happy that he's been able to take the win.
Yeah, I think he did a brilliant job, and I think obviously going into the final 2 rounds, he's going to have even more motivation to try and do it again and try and get himself some podium positions. But I'm wondering, Dan, do we have anyone in here for an interview yet?
Well, let's bring it over to the interview room and have a little look. Indeed, we do. We have got both Otis Lawrence and Thomas Ronhaar in the interview room ready to talk to. Let's go to Otis Lawrence first. Second here today. It's your first podium since round number 5 at Mexico, where of course you took your second win of the season. How's it feel to be back in the interview room?
It feels good. Obviously I'm not as happy as I could have been, because we could have hoped for a win. But yeah, the strategy was decent. Again, shown on this game, like strategies, like it just doesn't make sense in this game, because previous round this strategy didn't work as well, and now it works. So yeah, it's interesting. But I'm happy with the result. The pace was there. We definitely showed it today, and yeah, I'm happy to come up with a podium.
Absolutely, and of course you were following in the wheel tracks of Thomas Ronhaar for most of this Grand Prix. If the roles were reversed and you were leading Thomas, do you think you could have taken that fight a bit heavier to Tom Manley? You were all over the rear of Thomas throughout most of this Grand Prix. Do you think maybe you could have had a shot at the win if you were running in that P2 spot?
Who knows? I can't really answer that, to be honest, because Thomas is rapid. He's obviously one of the fastest drivers on this game, so yeah, it could have ended different. I don't know. Yeah, maybe if we burnt battery a bit earlier, then we could have got past, used the advantage a bit more. But yeah, it's all, you don't really want to risk it at this track. It's when you have low ERS, you kind of can get swamped from behind if someone saves their battery. So yeah, we played it the safe way anyway, and yeah, we played it good, so we got some consistent points today.
In the last 2 rounds of the season, we're heading to Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia. How are you feeling for those 2 circuits?
Saudi, I feel really good. Abu Dhabi, I haven't done much on this game. I've done like 2 races, I think. I felt pretty good. I think last time we did Abu Dhabi, we nearly won. I think we came second. So yeah, pace looks good around there as well. So yeah, hopefully we can carry it on for the next few runs.
Well, that's all from me. Nathan, anything you want to add here?
Well, I've got a question. I'll ask on this time, Otis.
Yeah.
Obviously, going into the race, you took that obviously hard to medium. I believe it was hard to medium strategy. Was it hard to medium? Was it soft to medium?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we are. Do you think any of the strategy could have worked better in that for you?
I mean, I saw Tom Manley and Freddie. They did the medium hard strategy. And Tom Manley, I think, started behind, or was he in front? I can't remember. But they made the strategy work quite well. So yeah, I mean, again, as I said earlier, it's this game is very mixed with strategies. There's not really a perfect strategy on this game, because everyone's obviously doing different stuff. Obviously, people are gambling earlier and gambling longer, so never a good strategy on this game. Perfect strategy, shall I say? So yeah, who knows? Maybe if I did the medium hard, that would have been lower. So yeah.
Well, that's all from me. So congratulations, Otis, on the podium. It was nice to see you back up near the top, and hopefully next time you can try and get yourself a step closer.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Great job to Otis Lawrence, very hastily getting himself out of the interview room. We can move on then to Thomas Ronhaar, finishing second in this Grand Prix. We'll talk about your qualifying first. How'd that feel to put it on pole position here at such a flowing circuit like Qatar?
It's been a while since I've been on pole. I think in this day at least. But yeah, qualifying went really well. Got pole by a margin I wasn't even thinking of at the start of qualifying, or even getting pole, because I didn't have that much practice today. Just heading in towards it with having a lot of fun, hopefully, which it did. So yeah, qualifying went as smooth as it could. Definitely can't complain about how that went. And then in the race, obviously, had a good start. Of course, different strategies throughout the whole field, pretty much, with the Rebel drivers and AlphaTauri drivers on the mediums, and the rest were on the hards, apart from Thomas, who was on softs. So a bit of variations in terms of strategy. So that was, one thing to keep in mind. Some people might undercut, some people might overcut, depending where they are on track. And that was, really important to keep an eye on throughout the sort of middle phase of the stints. Played it really well. Managed to, when I pitted, stay ahead of the group that was pitting earlier, so I could use my pace with Otis to catch up to Tom and Freddie. And then unfortunately, didn't quite have the pace to get past. Obviously, played the save game, like Otis said as well. Still 2 runs left, and hopefully, mathematically, we're still in the fight for the last round.
Yeah, at the minute, you're trailing by just 29 points at the minute. Of course, a good finish from Jarno today means that you didn't quite capture as many points as you have done in the last few rounds in comparison to the Dutchman. However, it's still a good total from you there. Now, heading into the last few races where you're within 29 points, how high is the confidence that you can beat Jarno?
To beat Jarno is sort of in the mid, but it's 29 points is a lot to catch. But in terms of my confidence is really high. Definitely feel extremely confident on this game right now. I'm just gonna try my best to, like I say, be mathematically in it for the last round, and yeah, let's hope I can have a good shot at winning the last 2 races.
Yeah, we did a fantastic job. That's all from me, Nathan. Anything you want to talk to Thomas about?
Yeah, just a quick question. Obviously, in regards to the championship, obviously we got Ishmael Fassi who's sitting in second. I think he might drop down behind you after this race. Are you going to be a little bit worried about him still in those final 2 rounds if he, of course, comes back?
I mean, he's definitely in a shout. So yes, the answer. He's a very quick driver himself. Very young, very talented. So yeah, he's definitely going to be in it if he has some good race as well. Especially if Jarno doesn't have the luck in the last 2 rounds. It's going to be all to play for both of us. So yeah, gonna be fun, like I say, and I think I've said this about 10 times now. Hopefully, we're gonna be mathematically in it in the last round.
Indeed, well, yeah. Hopefully, as well, you can get yourself for that championship. Well, that's all from me. So, Thomas, thanks for joining us. It was nice to see you back at the top. So, sorry, second on the podium. Maybe you can get back to the top next time.
All right, cheers, David. Cheers, guys. Cheers, Tom.
Thank you, Thomas, for joining us in the interview room. Unfortunately, we've not got Tom Manley, so I think we could just end off here. Nathan, I'll bring us back into the intermission room. We could talk about that race once more. Not too much drama. Gotta say though, the incident between Luke Smith and Jake Benham, that is very questionable. I think the stewards gonna have some words about that.
Indeed, I saw a clip of it on Twitter just, and yes, it's definitely controversial, and so we'll see what the shoes have to say, and well, I'm sure the chat, I'm sure Twitter will have a lot of words to say that as usual, as well, why wouldn't they? But yeah, obviously going towards those final couple of rounds now, I think it's crucial for both Jarno and Thomas to try and get as much points, but also Ishmael Fassi, he's been a driver we haven't really spoke about in championship terms, but obviously he hasn't been here this week. Obviously, I presume we'll be back for the next 2 weeks. Obviously, that is still, you never know, but I'm sure it should be. So yeah, he could still also try and fight for it in those, in the last 2 races. So we'll see what obviously can happen with that. But either way, I think any 3 of them who can take the championship fully deserve it because they've all done a brilliant job this season. Obviously, as well, we've had break weeks here and there, so it's been a bit, chunky as well this season as in and out. So I think either way, they've done a brilliant job at keeping up with everything. So we can't congratulate them more for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Jarno Opmeer, just the epitome of consistency throughout the entirety of this season. He's got 5 podiums to his name, a win back in Belgium, in Brazil. It's been a while though since he's actually taken victory. Ismail Fassi got very hot very early, but he hasn't scored a podium since round number 6, where actually Jarno took his last victory in Brazil. And Thomas Ronhaar missing the first round of this season, the first 4 races of season 16. All of a sudden he's been thrusted into a championship contention battle. 29 points separating Jarno Opmeer and Thomas Ronhaar heading into the last few races of this season. We head to Abu Dhabi next time out, so I hope that you can all join us there. I believe we've not got anyone else to talk to here this evening, so we'll end off with on a very high note, I would say. Both Otis Lawrence and Thomas Ronhaar very happy to join us in the interview room. Shame we didn't get to hear from Tom Manley, but life goes on. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can find us at WOR League, and if you haven't already, we're getting so close to 20,000 subscribers. That'd be a huge milestone. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to be a part of the exponential growth that we have witnessed in the last few seasons. If you want to keep up to date with all your WOR news, you can join the Discord. The link is in the description. If you want to follow myself on Twitter, it is at DanFieldF1_, and if you want to follow Nathan, it is RichieF1 with the I's replaced by 1s. Thank you everyone once again so much for watching. We will see you next time out in Abu Dhabi, but until then, thank you and good night.
It is the home of sim racing leagues. Our management tools allow you to recruit drivers and monitor their ratings and live splits. Find this and more at gridfinder.com. Sign up for free.